the first long sunlight at dawn pierces the thin fog of the small town on the border of the spiritual greatland, illuminating the broken streets. Lingyuan Diamonds came out of a thatched hut that was about to be buried. He was as thin as a bamboo pole, wrapped in torn white clothes. He rubbed his sore shoulders, his eyes filled with a sense of unconvinced ruthlessness, and muttered in a low voice, "Today, I'm going to turn over." There was noisy sound on the street, and Xiaofeng shouted at the top of his voice. The iron craftsman snatched the slap and made a tingling sound, and there was a sour smell in the heat. Lingyuan walked through the crowd with his head low, avoiding the cold eyes of passers-by, and his heart seemed to be burned by fire. He was an orphan. He had been living in this broken place since childhood. He had been fists and rolled his eyes. However, the thought of becoming the strongest warrior in his heart has never been tolerated. As long as I pass the talent ceremony, I can make these low-key guys close their mouths. He bit his teeth tightly, and his pace became faster and faster. "Lingyuan, wait!" A clear voice came from the back. Lingyuan turned his head and saw that it was Su Wu, the girl who grew up with him since childhood. She was wearing a simple blue shirt, smiling on her face, carrying a small cloth bag in her hand, and ran over quickly. "This is the breakfast for you. After eating it, you can go to the venue. Today is a big deal." Suing stuffed the cloth bag into his hand, his eyes full of concern. Lingyuan took the cloth bag, and felt warm in his heart. He grinned hard and said, "Don't worry, how could I die of dying? When I wake up my talent, please go to the best winery in the town and rub it." Su Rong laughed and patted his shoulder. "Okay, I remember. Don't let me down." Lingyuan was a little bit, lowered his head and bit the hard puff, and a warm current surged in his heart. In the same way, no matter how many wolves he is, they are always there. He clenched his fists and swore secretly, "I have to become stronger and I can't let you snatch the wind and rain from me again." In the shadows in the corner of the street, an old figure stood quietly. Yun, the most mysterious veteran in the town, looked as if he could see through everything. He stared at Lingyuan's back, moved a little uncertainly, and knocked his fingers on his waist, as if he was weighing something, but he didn't make any noise. Not long after, Lingyuan arrived at the talented building in the center of the town. The air around the ancient stone platform was filled with a sense of pressure, and the spirit flowed around, making people feel swelling. The market was filled with young people, some were shaking their hands tightly, and some were excited to speak privately. Lingyuan stood by the crowd, looking at the slight radiant stone in the center, his heart beating like a drum. He licked his cracked lips and said in a low voice, "This thing seems to be talking to me. Lingyuan, come up." The old man who was hosting the ceremony said in a low voice, and he burst into a thunderous voice. Lingyuan took a deep breath and slowly walked forward under the eyes of the crowd. His palm touched the heavenly stone, and a cold energy instantly penetrated his body, making his bones numb. The next second, a golden light burst out from the Tianzhi stone, and a strange symbol flashed through it, so fast that people couldn't see it clearly. Lingyuan was confused and felt that there was something more in his brain, but without thinking about it, for big words appeared on the stone: Shengang Protective. Shengang Protecting Body? What's this? The crowd around exploded, some were puzzled, and some laughed out loud. Su Rong stood nowhere, holding both hands tightly, and her eyes were filled with worry. Yun, who was hidden behind the crowd, narrowed his eyes slightly, and his fingers hit the sword for a moment, muttering in a low voice, "It's interesting. This guy hides it very deeply." His words were plain, but his eyes were a little more fluctuating than usual. But before Lingyuan could come back to his senses, a harsh laughter broke through the peace of the square. "Ha ha ha, you are a waste, also a warrior? The bodyguard of the divine gang? I haven't heard it, it must be a garbage talent." Zhao Lai, a tall boy, walked out of the crowd, staring at Lingyuan mockingly. His talent was just detected as rare as the flaming blood, and he had been complacent and was even more proud at this moment. Lingyuan's face darkened, and his fists clenched and his bones turned white. He knew that he was as weak as a slut, and he was not Zhao Lai's opponent at all, but the fire in his heart made his eyes red. He gritted his teeth, his face was so cold that he opened his mouth coldly. Zhaolu, my road is not your way to point at your fingertips. One day, I will make you regret every word you say today. Yi, your mouth is quite hard. Zhao Lai sneered, strode towards him, and raised his hand to push Lin Jun. At this moment, Su Rong suddenly rushed to Lin Jun and glared at Zhao Lai. What are you fucking? Is it so good to bully others? Her voice was a little trembling, but her eyes were as hard as iron. Zhao Lai was stunned for a moment and immediately sneered, okay, I'll give you face today. But Lin Jun, remember it. Don't even want to get up like this. After saying that, he glared at Lin Jun fiercely and turned around and walked away. Lin Jun stood there, his chest undulating. Looking at Su Wang's stubborn back, his heart felt like it was cut by a knife. He clenched his fists tightly, his nails pinched into his flesh, and there was only one thought in his brain: I can't always let her out for me. I want to become stronger and bring back these humiliations 100 times. Yun, who was far away, looked at this scene, stopped the action of knocking on the sword, and a light that was not easy to detect was flashed in his eyes. His figure swayed slightly, as if he was about to leave, but his pace was half a beat slower than usual. In the shadows around the square, Lin Junjin stood alone, looking at the dispersed crowd, and a fire ignited in his eyes. He didn't know how capable this Shengang protective body was, but he understood that this was just the beginning. The real road is waiting for him to go and break the guys who look down on him. The ridicule of the Tianfeng Plaza was like a knife shaved Lin Jun's ears. He walked on the streets of Shaojin with heavy steps. The sun was dazzling and could not warm the ice in his heart. Just now, the blink of an eye of Su Yan and the look that Su Yan put on his chest was burning like fire. He lowered his head and bit his teeth tightly, his fists clenched so hard that his bones almost broke. There was only one thought in his heart: I never want to be stepped on by someone again, it's absolutely impossible. I have to stand up and beat him back. The streets were filled with people, and Xiaofeng's shouts and the children's smiles mixed together, which made his brain even more disturbing. As he was walking, the leisure of the two ants beside him suddenly drew into his ears: the Su family is really desperate. They ran to the forest to take medicine alone, and I don't know if they can come back. Lin Jun stepped abruptly, his heart as if he was struck by lightning. He twisted his head and rushed to the ant. His voice was so anxious. Auntie, where did you say Su Rong go? When did you leave? The ant was shocked by his strife and replied, Just a moment ago, he said he wanted to take herbs. Why are you so anxious? Lin Jun didn't have the heart to stop, so he ran wildly when he clicked his head, and a long line was formed from the soil under his feet. His brain was full of Su Ying's pictures alone in the forest. The broken place demon was walking, and she was a girl who was not a little warlike. If she hit something... He didn't dare to think about it, and he just hated that he couldn't run fast. Sweat drifted over the head, and his eyes were filled with a ruthless voice: Su Ying, please hold me back. Even if I fight for this life, I will find you. The ancient forests along the town quickly caught my eyes, with dense tree shadows pressing down on the black, and the air was filled with a fishy smell. Lin Wu pierced into the forest, and the dead branches stomped under his feet, and he shouted in a loud voice, Su Wang. Where are you? A squeak. The sound replied in the forest, only attracting a few birds with their wings. He was as anxious as a thorn on a hot pot, and he slapped around and finally heard a shattering silence after the bushes ahead. Save me. Su Wang's faint sound pierced into Lin Jun's heart like a slight sound. His pupils shrank violently, and he ran over. He saw Su lying on the ground, his clothes torn a few holes, and his arms were covered in blood. Next to it, a iron-clawed wolf bared its sharp teeth and rose to approach. Its yellow eyes locked her tightly, and she would snatch it up and bite it at any time. Beast! Looking for death! Lin Jun roared angrily, and regardless of his pounds, he rushed up directly and kicked the iron-clawed wolf's belly hard. The wolf was in pain, roared and slapped it hard. Lin Jun only felt that his chest was hit by a huge rock. He flew out and hit the tree hard, causing Venus to appear in front of him. But he gritted his teeth and got up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and slapped in front of Su Rong, staring at the wolf and shouting, "If you want to touch her, tear me apart first." The iron-clawed wolf was shocked by his air, and he growled and took a step back, half a step, but soon came up again, with the sharp claws holding the fishy wind straight into the face. Lin Jun was not a rival at all, so he could only hold his head and resist. Every time he made a move, it seemed like he was about to smash his bones, and his flesh was caught in blood. His brain was buzzing, and there was only one thought in his heart: if I fall down, who will protect her? Fight! But his Shengang protecting body was not at all swaying. His body became heavier and he dripped blood onto the ground. "Lin Jun, run quickly, don't worry about me." Su Wang's voice was shaking, her eyes slid down mixed with the soil, but she still wanted to get up. When Lin Jun heard this, his heart felt like he was torn apart. Xiao Wu roared back, "Close your mouth. How could I throw you away?" But he knew that it would be useless to carry it on his shoulder. Just as the iron-clawed wolf came again, a rage slashed from the side like thunder, accurately on the wolf's neck. "Ayo!" The iron-clawed wolf screamed and fell to the ground, blood staining the grassland. Lin Jun panted and turned his head and saw that the old Gaiyan was standing far away, and the cold light of the ancient penis in his hand had not dissipated. His face was as cold as a stone, and his eyes were filled with a little more difficult to detect than usual. Lin Jun ignored him and ran to Su Ying's body, carefully helped her up, and looked at the wound on her arm, and felt an indescribable pain in her heart. He murmured in a low voice, "I'm sorry. I can't protect you." His fingers trembled slightly, and his brain was full of the back of her stick when she was a child. Su Wang smiled hard and held his hand gently, "You're here, you're done. Let's carry it together." This seemed to ignite the stubbornness in Lin Jun's heart. He gritted his teeth and glared at Yun. "Old, since you have taken action, don't hide it. What is my talent like this? Why don't you use it at all?" His words were full of unwillingness, and his eyes were burning with the fire of seeking knowledge. Yun was silent for a moment, and his fingers knocked on the handle, as if he was in power, so he opened his mouth. "Your Shengang protective body is not a waste, but it is not a magical skill that can be used in nature. It must be tempered by combat. Every time you get beaten, your body will remember the pain and slowly build up defense." He paused for a moment, his eyes swept over Lin Jun's overwhelming injury, and then reiterated, "To put it bluntly, the more you get beaten, the stronger you can become. But the premise is, don't be killed first." Lin Jun was stunned, and a light flashed in his eyes. He lowered his head and looked at the bloodstains on his body, and a strange heat surged in his heart. "It turns out that this is. I have changed my life with my life." The cold energy when he suddenly flashed through his brain, as if he had a constant connection with this forest. Yun seemed to have seen through his thoughts, and his language was still cold. "There is a hidden spring in the forest, deep in this forest, that can calm the impact of spiritual power. If you want to grow quickly, you might as well go and look for it." After speaking, he turned toward the shadow of the tree, and the figure was still hidden, leaving only a humble sentence hanging in the wind: "Boy, the road is yours, don't expect others to walk for you." Lin Jun looked at the direction where Yun Wang disappeared, and looked down at Su Wang and Yen, and the fire in his heart became even stronger. He clenched his fists and looked deep in the forest. The hidden energy seemed to be summoning him, making him feel that he had finally caught a strong hope. The night covers the forest, and the cold wind is like a blade, making the forest's face hurt. He held Su Wang with one hand and stepped heavily on the muddy cube, but the direction of Yun Wang leaving was still snatched in his brain. The trees and shadows around were swaying, and the air was filled with dampness and fishy air. The low growls from afar made people's backs sway. Su Yan leaned against his shoulder, his breath was weak, and although the wound no longer bleeded, her face turned pale with every step. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly, his chest as if it was blocked by a stone, and he shouted in a low voice, "Su Wang, hold on. That spiritual spring is right in front of me, I will definitely bring you there." "Lin Jun, don't come." Su Ying's voice was slightly terrifying. He raised his head hard, and a smile came out from the corner of his mouth. Lin Jun didn't say anything, but just held her hand tightly. Her eyes swept through the darkness around her like a knife. This broken place is full of dangers, and something may come out at any time, but a strange expectation ignited in his heart. The old Guyanyan said that only by being beaten can he become stronger, so I will try how hard this talent is. As the front plate was calculating, the bushes in front trembled violently, and a pair of green eyes stared at them from the black shadow. Lin Jun's heart was tight and he shouted softly, "Su Wang, retreat." Before he finished speaking, a fox snatched out. His body was like a flash, and his pointed claws were swept up with cold light. The speed was so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to distinguish. Lin Jun could only instinctively raise his arm and press it in front of him and take the strike. Hiss! The arms were filled with tears, and the blood flowed down instantly, and the skin opened its flesh. But Lin Jun's head didn't move a step, and his brain was flashing the scene of his desperation against the iron-clawed wolf. He was beaten up last time, but this time he couldn't do it. He stared at the fast fox, his teeth creaked and he growled, "Beast, I won't be afraid of you today." In his anger, a icy force swelled in his body, and a layer of extremely thin light appeared on the surface of his skin, as if he was responding to his unyieldingness. The fast fox roared and rushed over again, slapped Lin Jun's chest hard. He took this hard, his body was shocked and retreated 2 steps, his chest stinging like a fire, but the pain seemed not so sharp this time. He glanced down, and although the bloody mouth on his arm was swelling, the bleeding rate was slower. A thought suddenly slammed into his heart: this is the Shengang protective? The more you get beaten, the more you can resist it? A curve floated around his lips, and the war in his eyes was burning. Okay, then come a few more. This time, Lin Jun was not waiting for the beating. He took the initiative to step forward, his eyes closed a crooked old tree beside him, and he shouted softly, "Beast, play with me." He deliberately led his body to the side, and the fast fox really came. Lin Jun suddenly rolled to the side, and the fox slapped the sky with his claws, directly hitting the thick tree and wailing. He jumped up and punched the fox hard on the belly, knocking it to the ground with a bang. The demon beast tugged and got up, and a flash of desire flashed in his eyes. Want to run? Make a dream. Lin Jun panted heavily, wiped off the blood from the corner of his mouth. The ice squid power in his body became clearer, as if he was in a whisper. You can withstand it. He could feel the defense was rising rapidly, from the beginning without any force, to at least 10% of the damage now. Although this progress was small, his heart beat wildly. I finally got the way. Suing hid behind, watching Lin Jun killing bloody battles. A complex light flashed in his eyes. She bit her lower lip tightly and murmured in a low voice, "Lin Jun, you are really different." Although the sound was light, it was full of confidence. When Lin Jun heard this sentence, his body shook slightly, and his chest seemed to be burned by something. He turned his head and grinned, "Don't worry, this thing can't touch me, and it won't be closer to you." The fox of the rapid wind was irritated and roared again, but Lin Jun no longer just resisted. His body opened its front and kicked hard under his feet. The whole person slammed towards the fox's side and punched it straight into the hind leg. With a bang, the demon fell to the ground and twitched for a while. He didn't dare to get closer, but just roared and retreated slowly. Lin Jun stood there, gasping for breath. His whole body was covered in scars, but his eyes were as sharp as a knife. Run? It's too late. He rushed up and stepped on the fox's bones with one foot, which directly resulted in it. At the end of the battle, Lin Jun held his knees with his hands, sweat mixed with blood dripped onto the ground, and his body felt as if it was ashamed. But an irresponsible excitement ignited in his heart. The power of Shengang protecting the body is awakening. Although the thin light was weak, it actually protected his vitals, causing him to kill him to death. Lin Jun, are you okay? Su Wang walked closer, holding his hands slightly trembling. Lin Jun shook his head and said with a sound of sha wu, "I can't die, I'm still moving. The spirit spring is right in front of me, I will definitely take you over." He helped her up, and the two of them continued to move forward with each other. The darkness and roar along the way are no longer so scary. When Lin Wu's brain flashes through those bitter days in the town, the fire is no longer just anger, but a vague hope for the future. After walking for most of the time, a clear pool of water finally appeared in front of me, and the surrounding spirit was refreshed. Lin Jun's eyes lit up and he growled, "It's here. This is the spirit spring." He carefully helped Su Wang sit down, squatted by himself, and scooped the spring water with his hands and poured it on the wound. The cold touch instantly dissipated the pain, and even the fatigue faded a little. Su Rong tore off a corner of the cloth, dipped it in spring water to help him wipe the wound, and the technique was light and soft and serious. She spoke in a low voice, "When I was a kid, my parents were always injured, and I helped them to do it. Then our town was so delicious that even we couldn't afford to buy weeds, so we could only bear it." She paused and looked up at Lin Jun. "Like you, we all climbed out of the mud, so I believe you can stand higher." Lin Jun heard this and felt like he was hit by something in his heart. He lowered his head and looked at the scars on his body, then looked at the firmness in Su Ying's eyes, and suddenly felt that the weight on his shoulders had sunk a little. He replied, "Su Wang, since now, with me here, you will not fall back. Let's move forward together, no one can hold it." While speaking, his fists were clenched unconsciously, and there was a decisive light in his eyes. As he was speaking, his eyes were unintentionally swept over a stone beside the spring. There were small cracks on the stone surface, which seemed ordinary, but when he stared at them for a few more times, he felt that the inner spirit and the crack were intimately clamoring, as if there was something to call. He murmured with a gaze, "What's this? Why is it a bit like my power?" But he shook his head immediately, only when he was tired, and pulled his attention back to rest. The night was getting cold. Lin Jun leaned against the stone, closed his eyes and felt the cold power brought by the Shengang protective body. He secretly calculated in his heart, "This is just starting. I need to become stronger faster and step back those guys who have stepped on me." Su Rong, who was standing beside him, looked at him calmly, with a hint of warmth hidden in his eyes. The wind blows deep in the forest, and the pools are wafting in detail, as if there is a bigger secret being quietly curled. The night was dark, and the water surface beside the spirit spring was filled with a faint cold light, and the rest of the previous battle was still circling in Lin Jun's body. He sat on a cold stone with his knees, closing his eyes, and constantly regaining every moment of his fighting against the fast fox in his brain. The pain of the sharp claws tearing the flesh, the burning of blood, and the feeling of the cold and thin light floating, the Shengang protective body reduced the damage from nothing to 10% of the damage. This progress made his chest look like a fire ignited. He suddenly opened his eyes and said, "It's not enough to just be beaten. I have to grasp the rules of this power and let it listen to my commandments." Beside him, Su Ying leaned against an old tree. Her face was pale and her eyes were soft. She opened her voice in a low voice, "Lin Jun, you just resisted that demon. You are already very hardworking. Don't force yourself too hard." Lin Jun twisted his head to look at her, grinned, and his voice was rough, "Fight. What's this? I'm going to be insulted in my sword, so that no one can hurt me or get close to you." His fists were clenched, and there was a flash of unwilling light in his eyes. As he was speaking, a night breeze blew over and a small wave appeared on the water surface. Lin Jun suddenly heard a low voice, "Boy, being beaten is the road, but the heart is the root." He was shocked, and he stood up suddenly, slapped around, and saw Yin Lu's figure walking out of the night fog. The old man was wearing a gray robe, his eyes were as deep as old trees, hiding something that had not been said. Lin Junmei asked, "Old, what does it mean? Let me understand." Yun didn't answer directly, stood up with his hands. His language was calm and silenced with an invisible pressure. There is a saying in martial arts, which controls the body with the heart and turns into injuries. If you only know how to resist, it will be just a target. After speaking, he raised his fingers lightly, and circles of strange waves appeared on the surface of the spiritual spring under Lin Chen's feet, as if responding to a certain force. Lin Jun stared at the water surface. His head was full of birds, muttering, "Controlling your body with your heart. Is it hard to use your will to drive this defense?" He didn't chase after him, lowered his head and pondered, and felt like a light in his heart was lit, and he grabbed a single point. I understand. It's not just about carrying it on my body, but I have to let my spirit follow my thoughts. Lin Jun's eyes lit up, sat down, closed his eyes and tried to lead the faint spirit in his body to the surroundings of the wound. The cold and thin light really reacted, covering the skin smoothly. Although it was still very light, it was a little more solid than before. He gritted his teeth and shouted in his heart, "Come on, I want to push this defense a little higher." Suing looked at his focused look and reminded in a low voice, "Lin Jia, be careful, don't destroy yourself. Have you ever thought that the breath of this spiritual spring can help you recover faster?" Lin Jia didn't squint, but just hummed, "Don't worry, I'm responsible." "You reminded me, Here Fang's spirit was indeed a bit weird, or maybe it could be used to try new ways." As soon as the voice fell, he stood up suddenly, immersed his hands in the spirit spring, felt the clear breath rolling into his palm, and tried to integrate his will into it, allowing the thin light of the Shengang protecting the body to resonate with the spirit spring air. The night became more dense, and the atmosphere around the spiritual spring gradually became tighter. Lin Wu sat quietly with his eyes closed and tried to drive his spirit with his will. He suddenly heard a slight rustling sound coming from the dense forest nowhere. He squinted his eyes and yelled softly, "Something is approaching. Suing, hide behind the stone." Suing pointed his head and quickly retreated behind a large stone. Lin Wu stood up, his muscles were tight, and his eyes closed to a pair of red eyes in the darkness. It was a night shadow cat with a strong body and a cold light flash of claws. "Beast, come on. Just try my enlightenment with you." Lin Jun took the initiative to take a step forward, deliberately revealing his broken hole, and his heart sank into that thin light. The Yang cat growled, and his body turned into a black shadow and swept his claws straight into his chest. With a bang, Lin Jun took the blow. His body was shaken back half a step, and his chest was sore, but the thin light flashed slightly, causing more damage than before. He grinned, ecstatic, "It's done. At least half this time." The night shadow cat missed and rushed again, and its claws tore through the air. Lin Jun no longer resisted purely. He flicked his body, kicked his feet violently, and punched the demon beast's belly with his backhand, shouting, "Sangshan fist." The fist was like thunder, and although he had not completely hit it, he forced the Ying cat to stumble back. He took advantage of the pursuit and poured his soul into his arms, and then smashed it with another heavy punch, directly overturning the demon beast to the ground. "Dare you dare to come? Seeking death?" Lin Jun panted heavily, wiped off his sweat, and felt that the thin light in his body became more stable, and his defense had increased to half. He lowered his head and looked at his blood-stained arm, and a difficult feeling of excitement surged in his heart. "I have found a way. A few more times, this Shengang protective body will definitely be able to go to the next floor." At the end of the battle, he dragged his tired body back to the fountain. Su Rong came up and held a cloth dipped in spring water in her hand, carefully helping him wipe the wound. She opened her voice in a low voice, "When I was a kid, every time my father was injured, my mother could only wipe him with well water. I always thought that if I could be stronger, they wouldn't have to be so bitter." She paused, looked at Lin Jun, with a complex light hidden in her eyes. "You, like me, are all crawling out of the mud. So, I believe you can stand up, but don't force yourself to the end." Lin Jun heard this, and his chest seemed to be blocked by something. He clenched his fists tightly, looked down at his scar, and looked at Su Ying's face again, and replied, "Su Ying, since now, with me here, you won't let you fall back. Let's move forward together, no one can stop." He turned to the table and grinned again. "Why do we practice together? Just guard yourself and learn to protect yourself first. What do you think?" Su Ying was stunned for a moment, and immediately looked at her head, and the corner of her mouth slightly raised. "Okay, I don't want to drag you back." The two of them smiled at each other, and the sound of water around them gurgled. When the night wind blew, there was a difficult warmth. As he was speaking, Lin Jun's eyes accidentally swept over a stone beside his foot, with unruly traces on it, which seemed ordinary, but when he stared at it for a few more times, he felt that the inner spirit and this trace were intimately urging, as if there was something to attract it. He murmured with a gaze, What's this? Why is it a bit like my power? But he shook his head immediately, only when he was so tired that he kept this in his heart and didn't think about it anymore. The night was as dark as iron, the coldness beside the spring was biting, and the sound of water was filled with uneasy movements. Lin Jun sat on a cold stone with his knees, and had just gasped from his previous asceticism. The thin light in his body was still faintly flashing, reducing his nerves to a half. He closed his eyes and tried to sink his will into the spirit. He suddenly heard a rapid rustling sound from the deep forest, as if something was approaching quickly. "Here!" Lin Jun shouted softly, his eyes sank violently, his body swelled up like an arrow from the strings, and his eyes closed tightly at the few green light in the darkness. Su Rong quickly stood beside him, holding a thick wooden stick in his hand, his face full of tightness. The next moment, only a few phantom spiders with translucent bodies and scattered faint spirits emerged from the forest, with 8 thin legs as sharp as a blade, and rushed towards the two. "Su Wang, hide behind. I'll take these beasts." Lin Jun roared, stomped his feet and stepped on the ground, actively rushing towards the spider at the front. This time, he no longer stood up stupidly, but instead flashed his body, trying to avoid the straight prick of his pointed legs, and shouted softly, "Tsongshan Fist." The fist was like thunder, and it exploded with a faint spiritual force, directly hitting the spider's head, causing a group of broken light to emerge. But the other spider rushed from the side, and his pointed legs slapped over his arm. The blood flowed down instantly, making him hum a sigh of pain. Suing couldn't bear it even if he saw it. He held a wooden stick and slammed it hard on the spider on the side, forcing him to retreat. However, he was swept over the calf by the third sharp legs, and fell to the ground with his face pale. She gritted her teeth and shouted, "Lin Jun, I can't watch you get beaten alone. Let's fuck them together." "Damn it." Lin Jun saw her fall, his heart as if it was burned by fire, and a hint of red flashed in his eyes. He turned around suddenly, kicked the injured spider, and roared, breaking open. The iron mountain collapsed. This foot was like 1,000 beads, kicking the spider flying directly, smashing it on the rocks in the distance and shattering it into light. He gasped, turned his head to look at Su Rong, and his voice was low, "Don't move again," I said. "I will protect you this time." Su uncovered her wound, tightened her head, and retreated to a large stone and leaned against her. Lin Junyan bit his teeth and faced a few phantom spiders left. His brain was flashing through the muddy road in the small town, and his chest seemed to be blocked with a stone. He whispered, "You can't be like you used to be, you can only be beaten. I have to take the initiative to attack and practice this defense to the extreme." He forced his will into his body and tried to drive the thin light covering his whole body. Sure enough, when the next thorn came, the wound was deep, but the pain seemed to be a little weaker, and the injury was reduced and the injury was approaching 2%. The battle was fierce and short, and during the breath, Lin's was sent several heavy punches to smash the last spider into pieces. He dragged his wounds to Su Wang and squatted down to check her injuries. Xiao Wu opened his mouth, "Can you still hold it? Why didn't you listen to it? You have to come up." Suing slammed her head and smiled hard. "My father was injured that year, and my mother could only stare at her. I don't want to repeat it again. Lin Jun, I believe you can do it, but I have to let me help you." This pierced Lin Jun's heart like a knife. He clenched his fist tightly, looked down at the blood marks on his arm, glanced at her white face, and a sense of inconsistency ignited his chest. He said in a low voice, "Okay, let's move forward together. But next time there is danger, you have to take good care of yourself." As he was speaking, a heavy sound of footsteps came from the night fog. Yun Lu's figure walked out slowly. His gray robe was shaking lightly, his eyes were as cold as a pool of stagnant water, and his language was flat and silenced. "Boy, I see the battle just now. Being beaten can practice your body, but the heart is the foundation. Only by integrating your will into the surrounding spirit can you truly live. If you only know how to resist, you will always be just a sandbag." Lin Junying wiped the sweat from the head of her head and asked in a deep voice, "Hold, how can I integrate it into the white point?" Yun didn't say much, his fingers raised lightly, his fingertips flashed, and circles of strange waves appeared on the surface of the spiritual spring around him, as if he was responding to a certain force. He said coldly, "Feel the breath of this spring and connect your heart. Prevention is not a dead thing, but you must share the birds with your will." Lin Chen stared at the water, his heart was shocked, puzzled about what he had caught. He sat down with his knees, immersed his hands in the cold spring water, closed his eyes and calmed his mind, sinking his will into the spirit in his body, and then blending with the spirit in the spring water. The thin light really reacted, spreading from the surface of the skin to the depth of the tendons, and the damage reduction effect gradually became stable, and it was really close to 2%. He suddenly slid his eyes, a light ignited in his eyes, and he growled, "It's done. This defense is much harder than before." Yun slightly pointed his head, his language was still plain, "It's not bad, but it's just a starting point. Martial arts have no end. If you want to truly control this power, you have to take the initiative to find a war and use real war to polish your mind. Boy, don't let me down." Lin Chen stood up, his fists clenched, and his heart was boiling in his chest. Wait and see. This Shengang protective body has long been practiced until no one can break it. I want to make no enemy close. He turned his head to look at Su Rong and grinned. "Did you hear it? From now on, we will take the initiative to attack and become stronger together." Su Rong pointed his head, and a warmth flashed in his eyes. "Okay, I'll be with you. If you climb out of the mud, you have to stand to the highest point, so that no one can step on us." At this moment, Lin Wu glanced down at a few small bubbles floating on the surface of the spring water, faintly abnormal, like a faint light inside him. He murmured with a gaze, "What's this? Why does it feel weird?" He shook his head immediately, only when he was so tired that he didn't think about it anymore. But a sense of anxiety rose in his heart. The bubble seemed to be hiding something unknown, making his fingers clench a little unconsciously. The next morning, the morning fog was still hanging on the branches beside the spirit spring. The forest fog stood next to the broken old campground beside the woodland. The coarse cloth clothes were wet with dew, and the soreness left by the fight last night was hidden on the shoulders. He looked down at his palm, and the thin light flowed slowly, and the damage had stopped at 2%. After last night's killing, he felt that this power was like a flame in the fire of a small-town iron craftsman's stove, burning more and more. He raised his head, glanced deep into the dark woodland, and said to Suing beside him, "Last time I figured out how to integrate my will into my spirit. Today, before those beasts come to the door, we will take the initiative to attack. Let's make a trap together and lead them out and slaughter." Suing stood aside, holding a shiny wooden stick in her hand, with a slight brow, but there was more of a reassuring light in her eyes. She lightly said, her voice was low and steady, "Lin Chen, I'm not here to pull my back legs, but just want to tell you that no matter how far you are, there will be someone behind you to help you. Fight for you, I stare at you." This was like a warm wind, blowing Lin Chen's heart heated. He grinned and patted his chest. "Okay, with your words, I'm more energetic. Let's go forward together." Nowhere far away, Yun leaned under an old tree, his gray robe shook lightly with the morning wind, his eyes as calm as a pool of stagnant water, as if nothing around could escape his attention. He didn't say anything, but just a slight head, as if he was deciding on this challenge. Lin Chen glanced at the look, and felt like he had been knocked in his heart. He secretly clenched his fists. "Old man, wait and see. I will not be a target for being beaten forever. This Shengang protective body will be practiced until sooner or later, no one can break it." Around the campsite, the shadows of trees sway, and the air is mixed with the fishy smell of moist mud and spirit. Lin Wu closed his eyes, calmed his heart, integrated his will into the surrounding environment, and tried to capture the silhouette. Sure enough, the spirit deep in the woodland trembled like a ripple on the water surface, pointing in a direction. He suddenly squinted his eyes and shouted softly, "Suong, come with me, there is a silence there. Let's set up a trap to force that guy out." The two quickly started to work, digging out a pit in a dense forest, and laying down a rough and fatal trap with spikes and vines. Lin Jun squatted beside the pit, pressing his palm on the ground, melting his will into the spirit in the soil, simulating an enchanting and delicate microwave. Suwu knelt half-kneeling aside, his eyes slapped around him, and a low voice reminded, "Be careful, I always feel that the spirit here is not in opposition, as if there is something big hidden." Lin Jun pointed his head and smiled at the corner of his mouth, "No matter what it is, I'll kill one. I'll keep an eye on it, don't let it steal it." As soon as the words fell, the tree from the far side shook violently, and a shadow blade with dark body and hair as sharp as a knife stepped out. The red eyes scattered and violently killed the air, and each step made the surrounding spirit twist into a small air blade. Lin Jun's heart beats faster, but he hummed, "It's just right. I'm missing a sandbag for a trainer. Suwang, back down, see how I kill it." He kicked his feet hard, his body slashing out like an arrow, and his shadow was slammed into the wolf. The wolf growled, and his front paws slammed, and several blades tear apart the air and came to the surface. Lin Jun did not dare to take it in a head-on manner, his body was flashing, and at the same time he integrated his will into the surrounding spirit. His body surface was thin and his light was instantly condensed, reducing the damage from 2 to 2.5. He yelled softly, "Sangshan Fist." The fist was like thunder, hitting the wolf's head, but when the other party shook his body, he actually avoided it. The back claws slapped his shoulder hard, and blood was rising. "Gee, this beast is cruel." Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly, and he was so painful, but his heart seemed to be ignited. He quickly opened the distance, no longer reckless, but stared at the wolf's movements and tried to find the crack. Suwu looked at it with a heart-wrenching grin from behind and shouted, "Lin Jun, hide from its blade, don't take it hard." Lin Jun twisted his head and grinned, and replied loudly, "Don't worry, what's the point of this injury? It will only make my defense harder." The battle became more and more fierce, and Lin Jun understood the Shadow Blade Wolf's routine through repeated avoidances. Every time the air blade comes, he no longer relies on thin light to resist, but connects his will with the spirit of the surrounding plants and trees, forming a temporary barrier, and the damage has risen slightly again, approaching 20% of the 7. He looked into a gap and his body suddenly entered, roaring, the iron mountain collapsed. A foot was like a mountain pressing down on the top of the mountain, kicking the wolf's belly for several feet, smashing several thick branches. The Shadow Blade Wolf thrust up, and his low roar was filled with unwillingness, but it was obviously not so hard. Lin Jun panted heavily, wiped off the sweat, and the thinner light inside his body became thicker and more solid, and the damage was finally fixed at 28%. He snorted coldly and stepped forward, "Beast, today is your end of the day. Let me lie down." His fists were like rainstorms, accompanied by the angry shout of thunder, and the wolf's head was broken, and the black fog was scattered, leaving only the dead bones. At the end of the battle, Lin Jun stood up straight with his wounds all over his body, his chest undulating and a burning light burned in his eyes. He murmured in a low voice, "This defense is much harder than before. If you come to a few more places, I will be unable to get any attack." A desire surged in my heart, a higher level and a more powerful technique. He would push this Shengang protective body to the limit, so that those who had stepped on him would all kneel on the ground and tremble. Suwang ran over quickly, lowered his head to check his wound, his eyebrows were tightly locked. "You guy, you always make yourself like this, and you are not afraid of falling down." Lin Jun laughed and patted her on the shoulder, "Is this a little injury a fart? With you guarding the back, I will only fight harder. In the future, we will push forward together, and no one can stop." Suwang hummed lightly, with a flash of smile in his eyes, "Okay, I can't hold you anyway, I can only follow the rules, don't let you fall." Yun walked up, with a few drops of dew on the gray robe, and his temperament was still as cold as ice. "Boy, you did a good job. This is the way to integrate your will. If you continue, your defense will become stronger and stronger. But remember, you can't go far by just being beaten." Linzwa pointed his head and his fist creaked, "Old, I understand. In the future, I will not only guard it, but also have no chance to raise my hands." After saying that, He lowered his head and raised the broken wolf teeth that the shadow blade wolf fell on the ground, rubbed it casually, and suddenly raised his eyebrows. The spiritual path on this tooth is a bit strange, and there is a slight rebirth, as if it is urging away from something. He felt a little uneasy, remembering the strange conversations he had heard in those muddy days in the town, but quickly shook his head and said to himself, maybe I'm thinking too much, this broken spirit is already unreasonable. However, this strange still made his fingers clench a little unconsciously. Lin Jun raised his head and looked deeper into the woodland. The war in his eyes ignited again. It's not too late. There must be a harder guy waiting for me in this ghost place. I want to smash them and exercise their defense to the extreme. He turned his head and looked at Su Xiao and Yun, and a provocative smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Are you ready? Next, it won't be so simple. The morning fog just dissipated, and the forest and Suzhou stepped on the small pieces of the dark woodland and spread deeper. The soil was damp under the feet, and the air was mixed with the fishy smell of rotten leaves, which made people unable to breathe. Lin Jun walked in front, his eyes as sharp as a knife, and a thin layer of light in the palm of his palm flowed slowly, reducing his strength and stabilization stopped at 28% of the time. He twisted his head and said softly to Su Rong behind him, the spirit here is as erratic as boiling water, and it is no longer far away from the core. Put your eyes sharply and don't let anything make a loophole. Su Rong shook the rough wooden stick in her hand tightly and said, I'm guarding the side, you're dedicated to exploring the way. If you have feelings, I'll call you the first one. Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes were definitely incomparable. Lin Jun curled his lips and his fist creaked, okay, with you, I won't be afraid of death when I wake up. No matter what it is, I have to kneel down today. Far away, Yun's figure was hidden in the shadow of the tree, the gray robe was slightly waving, and her eyes were as cold as ice. He didn't say a word, but just followed silently, invisibly suppressing Len Wu to a mountain. Lin Jun glanced at him and felt angry. Wait, I'm not the only one who can be beaten up. The deeper you go, the heavier the pressure of the spirit, like an invisible chain swelling on your body, and your breathing becomes heavier. Lin Jun closed his eyes and calmed his mind, blending his will into the surrounding grass and soil, trying to catch the strange waves of the silk. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and shouted, Su Wang, there is a hard stock in front of him. The spirit is so full that it explodes quickly, be ready. As soon as the voice fell, a harsh rustling sound came from deep in the forest, like countless sharp claws tearing on the ground. The next moment, a huge shadow spider king crawled out of the darkness, his 8 long legs were as sharp as steel spears, and his black fog was rolling around, and his spirit twisted into a whirlpool. Its erectile squid is as red as blood, locking the forest wall tightly, as if looking at a treasure delivered to the door. Lin Jun's heart beat like a drum, and he sneered, Beast, come well. I'm worried that there is nothing to do to train. He stepped down and shot out like an arrow. His will merge into the environment. His body surface was thin and his light instantly condensed, reducing his injuries from 28 to 29. The Spider King let out a low voice, his long legs swayed, and several invisible wires wrapped around the spirit blades broke through the air, so quickly that they tore through the air. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly, flicking his body in advance as he sensed the flow of spirit, avoiding a fatal blow, but a blood mark was still scratched on his arm. Hiss, this guy is so cruel. Lin Jun hummed, sweating in pain, but his heart was burning even more vigorously. He quickly opened the distance, staring at the other party's actions, capturing every crack. When the wire came again, he had made a prediction in advance through the fine microwave movement, his body was flexibly avoided, and the thin light became thicker and thicker, and his stability exceeded 30%. He growled, Beast, I have figured out your path. Take me a punch and you will break the mountain. The fist was like thunder, and it was straight into the Spider King's abdomen. A loud and heavy sound came out. The other party's long legs shrank and he was forced to take a step back. But it quickly reversed, with 8 legs swaying, and countless wires were like rainstorms. Lin Jun did not dare to resist, his will merge into the soil, condensed a temporary earth wall to hold the attack, and at the same time, his body suddenly rushed in and shouted angrily. The iron mountain collapsed. A foot was like a mountain pressing on the top of the mountain, and it kicked the Spider King's belly hard. The black fog spread out, and it showed a sharp slight look. Lin Jun, be careful on the right. Suing shouted from the side, holding a wooden stick quickly approaching, and each hit the Spider King's link, trying to slow down its movement. Although her strength is weak, her moves are accurate, which makes the opponent's attacks slightly weak. Lin Jun twisted her head and grinned. It's a good job. Keep the side and hand it over to me. He rushed again, and his fists came out like a crazy wind. Each hit was accompanied by the roar of thunder 10,000 bells, and his injuries were stabilized to 32% in the intense exchange. The Spider King was beaten back step by step, the black fog scattered, and finally collapsed under Lin Jun's heavy punch, and his bones were scattered all over the ground. Lin Jun stood upright with a thick breath, covered in blood, and a warm light ignited in his eyes. His thoughts were like a craze. This defense is getting harder and harder. No matter how many more battles are, I will be unable to hurt any attack. He was even more eager to push this divine weapon protection to the extreme, so that those who had stepped on him would all crawl on the ground. Su Rong ran over quickly, his eyebrows were tight, and he lowered his head to check his injuries. You guy, you make yourself like this every time, and you are not afraid of falling down. Lin Chen laughed and patted her on the shoulder. Is this little injury a fart? With you behind the head, I will only fight harder and harder. Just now, those few sticks were hit. Next time we will work together to crush all these ghost things. Su Rong hummed lightly, and couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. Okay, I can't hold you anyway, so I can only keep in touch. Don't let you come alone. Far away, Yun walked closer, with a few drops of dew stained with the gray robe, and his words were cold. Boy, you did a good job. Your will is integrated into the environment, and your defense is much more stable than before. But by resisting alone, you can never become a real strongman. His eyes flashed slightly, as if there was a little more difficult to detect. Lin Jun grinned and clenched his fists. I understand. In the future, I will not only have to be careful, but also have no qualifications to let the enemy take action. You can wait and see. After saying that, he squatted down and lifted up the Spider King's skeleton, rubbing a cracked wire with his fingers. This thing seems normal, but there is a sensation of spirit flowing on it, as if it is connected to something far away, making his eyebrows slightly snail. This feeling, why is it a bit similar to the previous fluctuations on the wolf teeth? His breathing became slow and heavy, and his will slightly penetrated the wire, capturing only a vague guide that seemed to point deeper into the woodland. He shook his head and said in a low voice, maybe I'm thinking too much. Is this broken place already evil? He raised his head and looked at Suing, saying sincerely, I just realized that the attack of this beast is full of energy, so that I can see through its path in advance. Next time in the battle, you guard the side wings, my main force. We will cooperate more ruthlessly and smash these things. Suing pointed his head and held the wooden stick tightly. Okay, my stick method can hold their movements. You should focus on attacking and move forward together. Lin Jun stood up, his eyes turned to the depths of the woodland, and the war spirit was even more intense. His thoughts stormed. This is just the beginning. There must be a harder guy hidden in this terrible place. I want to blow them up and practice this defense to the extreme so that no one dares to underestimate me again. He turned his head and looked at Su Rong and Yun, and a provocative smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Are you following you? You won't be so relaxed next. After half a time after defeating the Spider King, Lin Jun and his party continued to move forward along the broken little rocks deep in the dark woodland. The soil under the feet was as cold as if it was stepping on the flesh. The pressure in the air was getting heavier and heavier, like an invisible big hand squeezing the throat, making people feel breathless. Lin Jun walked in front, his body showed a thin layer of light flashing in darkness, reducing his strength by 32%, and his eyes were sharply swept around, and he was ready to face any sudden situation at any time. The spirit in this broken place is as chaotic as a dog, which makes my chest feel panicked. Lin Jun spat and turned to look at Su Rong behind him. What are you doing? The wave in front is even more intense, and the bones are almost crushed. Su Rong held the wooden stick tightly, her face slightly pale, but her eyes were calm. There is a little disagreeable on the right, and the spirit is spreading out like a leaking atmosphere. You are dedicated to exploring the way, and I will help you stare at the side. Her voice was calm and she was filled with anxiety. Lin Jun grinned, his fists clenched. Okay, I'm much more relieved with your eyes. No matter what it is, I have to kneel down today. As soon as he said, a deep forest in front suddenly roared, like a thunder before the sky fell. Lin Jun walked a step, squatted slightly, his will scattered in an instant, blending into the surrounding grass, wood and soil, and captured a violent spirit flowing, as if he could tear people into pieces. Come! He shouted softly, his eyes locked in front of him. A huge group of spiritual vortexes appeared slowly and lie in the forest. The air around it was distorted and distorted, emitting a force that made the heart pound. The center of the vortex is like boiling iron water, with small cracks on the edges, constantly spraying out violent waves. Lin Jun's heart beats faster, and a sneer came out from the corner of his mouth, and a fire ignited in his heart. This thing is just used to rub my defense. When he was a child, he remembered clearly when he was trampled like a dog in a small town. Now, this vortex is a piece of gold and stone trial, and he wants to use it to prove that he can stand up. Su Wang, help me watch the side. I want to figure out the number of ways this ghost thing. Lin Jun said, gritting his teeth, closing his eyes and concentrating his mind, completely sinking his will into the environment. The whirlwind flow was like a knife slashing his brain. Every wave hurt his teeth tightly, but he held it hard and carefully distinguished the direction of each flow. Sweat dripped from the sides of the head, and the thin light on the body trembled to the point, reducing the damage from 32% to 10%, as if it was squeezed by something. Mom, this thing is swallowing my defense. Lin Jun heard a low curse, and his heart was filled with fire, but it was more excited. He quickly adjusted his will and locked a crack on the edge of the vortex. The spiritual flow there was slightly regular, like a hole that could tear open. Su Wang, there is something wrong with the crack on the right. Please stare at it to death. I want to start from there. Su Wang stood on his side, holding the wooden stick, and replied in a low voice, don't throw your spirit all over the core. There is indeed a loophole on the right side, and break through. I'll guard you, don't let other troubles flow over. Her words were calm, and a flickered in her eyes. Lin Jun heard this and pointed at her, your eyes are more poisonous than me. I used to rely on you to replenish my leaks, and today I am the same. Don't worry, I won't lose my chain. He suddenly opened his eyes, and his body rushed towards the rift on the right side of the vortex. The will was fully expanded, and the thin light on the surface was pressed to the extreme limit, and the damage was reduced directly below 10%. But at the moment when he touched the crack, he felt a strange pulling force, as if he was trying to explore his bottom line. He was shocked, and he seized this opportunity and collided his spirit with the crack. The thin light was tightened, and a thicker and more solid light curtain formed around him. Although the damage was reset to 10%, it was as stable as a mountain, and even a layer of weak shield could be produced, which could swallow a small range of shocks. It's done! This is the basic shield. Lin Jun growled, and the war broke out in his eyes. He could feel that although this new shield was not strong, it was definitely the first step in the evolution of the Shengang body. As long as there are more tough battles, this defense will be so hard that the enemy will not dare to move his fingers. He flashed his faces that had laughed at his waist and his brain, and snorted coldly in his heart, wait, I don't have the chance to scream. Far away, Yun stood in the shadow of the tree, the gray robe swaying lightly, watching everything coldly. His linguistic spirit was still so cold, but there was a strange thing that was not easy to detect in the pause. Boy, this shield is a bit meaningful. But remember, you can't go far just by being beaten. Lin Jun twisted his head and grinned, old, I understand. In the future, I will not only have to carry it, but also make the enemy lose even the amount of money they can do. You are optimistic. While speaking, Lin Jun squatted down, rolled up a piece of gravel from the edge of the vortex, touched the blurred marks on it with his fingertips, and felt a movement similar to the vortex. His eyebrows were slightly bent, but he quickly shook his head and stuffed the stone into it, thinking, maybe it's just garbage from this broken place, so it's okay to keep it and see it. After passing the whirlpool, the three of them came to a forest clearing, and the waves left by the surrounding spirit were flat, and the pressure was also weakened a lot. Lin Wuzhen vomited a breath and was about to call Su Xiao to continue moving forward. He heard a slight movement from the bushes ahead. He raised his eyebrows, his figure instantly slid, and he shouted in a low voice, "Who is there?" "He is hiding his head and showing his tail. Are you looking for death?" A shrub was split into pieces, and a young warrior covered in blood stumbled out. His face was pale, he covered his chest with his hands, and stood firmly and calmly, and then he bowed, "Brother, my name is Li Hen. I am a casual cultivator from the border. I just saw you tearing open the whirlpool, which was amazing. Can you pull me?" His voice was sandy, and there was a complex look in his eyes, which was both gratitude and something else was hidden. Lin Jun looked him up and down for a few times, and saw that the other party was weak and not as weak as a dress, so he snorted coldly, "I don't like to care about things, but I don't want to see people die. Follow me, but if you hear it, drag your legs and then drag them down." Li Hen was busy, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "How grateful, brother. I'm still a little bit strong, I can help you never secretly." His eyes swept past Su and Yun behind Lin Jun, as if they were measuring something. Suing approached and said to Lin Jun in a low voice, "It's good for many people, and it's a little bit of pressure. I'll pay attention to him, you'll focus on exploring the way." Her words were calm, and her eyes narrowed slightly, as if warning who was warning. Lin Jun patted her on the shoulder, "Okay, I'll be worried if you have you watching me. If this guy dares to play tricks, the first thing he can do is to wipe him out." Yun stood at the end of the team and glanced at Li Hen coldly, without saying a word, but just silently adjusted his position and placed himself at an angle that could take action at any time. His movements were extremely light, but he had a little more stolen at his pace. Lin Jun glanced at this detail and felt a little moved. This old man is stubborn, but his heart is not bad. I will let you see that I, Lin Jun, are definitely not the only ones who can only be beaten. The team reorganized, Lin Wu's eyes turned deeper into the woodland, and the war spirit was burning even more vigorously. He clenched his fists and said in a low voice, "This is the beginning. This place must have a harder color hidden. My shield has just been formed, and next, I have to use more blood to sharpen it until it is insulted." He turned his head and looked at the three people behind him, and a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Are you both tight? The front is not a place to play." Half a moment later, Lin Jun and his group continued to move forward along the muddy path deep in the dark woodland. The cold soil under their feet radiated a rotten smell of air, as if they were stepping on Chen Yan's blood. The pressure of the spirit in the air became heavier and heavier, as if there were invisible giant hands holding their throat. Every step they took made the chest feel as if it was about to explode. Lin Jun walked at the front of the team, his body surface was thin and light slightly flashed, and his strength was stable. His eyes were as sharp as hidden thorns, quietly swept through the shadows around him, and he was ready to threaten the sudden threat at any time. The spirit in this broken place is as irritating as a crazy dog, which makes my bones almost shatter. Lin Jun gritted his teeth and lowered his head, and turned to Su Rong behind him. "Are you okay? The wave in front is even more intense, and it feels like it can crush people alive." Su Rong held tightly and held his grip the wooden stick, with a white face and a sweaty head, but her eyes were still calm. "I'm fine. There's a little disagreement on the right, and the spirit scatters like rags. You're focused on exploring the way, and I'll stare at you." Her voice was calm, and she couldn't hide a tight string. Lin Jun grinned, his fists clenched. "Okay, I'm worried about it with you. No matter what kind of thing is ahead, I have to kneel down today." Before he finished speaking, a low and deep sound suddenly broke out from the deep woodland ahead, as if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking, shaking the ground so hard that the ground was shaking. Lin Jun walked for a while, squatted slightly, his will scattered in an instant, blending into the surrounding grass, wood, and soil. The horse sensed a violent spirit, as if it could turn everything into pieces. "Come!" he shouted softly, his eyes locked in front of him. A huge spiritual connection appeared slowly, lying among the woodland, and the surrounding air was pressed like ripples on the water surface, emitting a terrifying pressure that made people's heart beat faster. The center of the boundary is like a sea of boiling blood, with small cracks on the edges, constantly spraying out violent waves. Lin Jun's heart beats faster, his palms clenched unconsciously, and his chest seemed to be burning with fire. He gritted his teeth and flashed ahead of thought. This thing happened to be used to test the limits of Shengang protection. Those small towns who laughed at their waste will sooner or later smash a thin baba with their strength. Lihen, where's the weakest energy circle of this ghost thing? Can your experience of random cultivators be sent to the field? Lin Jun turned his head and looked at the newly joined young warrior, and his words came straight. Lihen wiped the mud on his face, and Sha Wu replied in his throat, "The crack on the right flows like a circle. I have touched similar things before, and starting from the edge can tear the whole." His eyes were serious, as if he was anxious to prove that he was not a waste. "Okay, Su Wang and I will stare at me around. I will touch the details of this thing," Lin Jun said, gritting his teeth, and immediately closed his eyes and concentrated his mind, and his will completely sink into the environment. The spirit flow on the boundary was like thousands of spikes piercing into the brain. Every wave hurt him so much that he sweated coldly, but he held it hard and carefully distinguished each tidal tide. Sweat dripped down his chin, his body surface was thin and shaking so much that it almost collapsed, reducing the wound and being pressed to an extreme limit, but he only had one thought in his mind: if you take another chance, you must find a breakthrough. "Boy, you're not doing anything, but don't expect someone to save you, otherwise you will die next time." Yun stood at the end of the team, snorting coldly. His temperament was still cold, but the voice stopped, and there seemed to be a strange rhythm that was difficult to detect. Lin Jun heard it, and the corner of his mouth slightly slided, without saying a word, but just silently adjusting his will and locking a crack on the right side of the defining boundary. The spirit flow there is slightly regular, like a gap that can be tear out. "Su Wang, the crack on the right is not in opposition. Help me to guard the side. I must be hard." Lin Jun suddenly slid his eyes and growled. Su was holding the head, holding the wooden stick, and responded in a low voice, "Don't waste all your energy, leave some energy to be surprised. I will keep you and will not let other troubles flow." Her words were flat, and there was a flash of worry in her eyes. Lin Jun pointed her head, and his body rushed towards the right side of the boundary like an arrow. The will was fully expanded, and the thin light on the surface was pressed to an extreme limit, reducing the damage by almost zero. But just as he touched the crack, he felt a strange pulling force, as if he was trying to explore his bottom line. He was shocked, and he seized this opportunity and collided his spirit with the crack. The thin light was tightened, and a thicker and more solid light curtain formed around him, increasing its stability to 10%, and even a layer of weak shield could be added, which could swallow a small range of shocks. "It's done! This is the basic protective shield for the Shengang protection." Lin Jun growled, and a flame ignited in his eyes. He could feel that although this new guard shield was weak, it was definitely the first step in evolution. As long as there are more tough battles, this defense will be so strong that the enemy will not be able to move. He flashed a thought in his mind: this kind of fortune is really a rebellious way given by God. Wait, those who have stepped on me will have to kneel down and beg for a favor. Go together, tear the boundary from this crack. Lin Jun shouted loudly, and led his head to the crack, and the shield resisted the spirit attack, making a low buzzer. Su Wang followed the tightness, and the wooden stick swept open and the surrounding area was in a turbulent range. Li Hen quickly replenished, indicating the weak points inside the crack. Turn to the left, the most tangent there is, and it is easy to collapse. Yun stood at the back, and the gray robe shook lightly. Although he did not take action directly, his steps moved slightly, and he always kept at a distance that could intervene at any time. With the joint efforts of several people, the boundary cracker was torn a little bit, and the violent spirit wave gradually leveled. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly, and his shield kept absorbing and striking, and his internal blood swelled, but he resisted the last wave of retaliation. With a brittle sound, the core of the boundary collapsed, and a small clear crystal fell to the ground, with faint rune marks engraved on the surface, scattering a faint movement. "That's all?" Lin Jun panted, lifted up the spirit crystal, wiped the soil on it with his hands, and his eyebrows were slightly anaconda. "It looks like a broken stone head, and it's useless." Li Hen walked closer, glanced at it, and said in a low voice, "This kind of rune is rarely seen on the sidelines, as if it's related to some ancient forbidden arts. However, it may be that I missed." His words were filled with a slight hesitation, and immediately slammed the head. "No matter what it is, please hold it first." Lin Jun plugged the spirit crystal into it, and didn't think much about it, only thinking that this thing was probably a waste product. His eyes turned forward again, and a more intense fighting spirit ignited in his eyes. "This is the beginning, there must be a harder challenge hidden in this ghost place. My shield has just been formed, and next, I have to use more tough battles to sharpen it until the knife is insufficiency." Suing approached and reminded in a low voice, "You have just spent a lot of effort, don't work too hard. I will pay more attention to the surroundings, you can calm down first." Her voice was light and soft, and it was full of concern that could not be ignored. Lin Jun patted her on the shoulder and grinned, "Don't worry, I'm thick-skinned, and I can't die. I'll save a lot of worry with you by my side." Yun snorted coldly, his temperament still coldly. Being beaten is not considered a face. But remember, relying on defense alone can't get to the top. He paused for a moment, and his pace moved slightly forward, as if waiting for some reaction. Lin Jun twisted his head and smiled, clenched his fists. I understand. In the future, I will not only have to bear it, but also make the enemy not have the qualifications to be even more hands-on. You wait and see." Li Hen stood in the middle of the team, watching the few people interacting, and a complex light flashed in his eyes. He coughed slightly and said in a low voice, "Brothers, this place is getting more and more evil. I will do my best to help, but I still have to rely on you to guide you." His language is a bit more serious, like trying to integrate into this temporary team. Lin Jun glanced at him and said, "Okay, if you have experience, say a few more sentences. But if you hear it, you will be able to drag your legs away." He was domineering, but there was a little more approval in his eyes. The team reorganized, and the four continued to move towards the deep forest. Although the pressure in the air was slightly weakened, the unknown danger was still hunched like a fog. The spirit crystal was slightly hot in the blink of an eye, as if there was some unsolved secret hidden. After a few hours, Lin Jun and his group finally snatched from the mud in the dark woodland, and followed the guidance of the faint runes on the spiritual crystal, and set foot on the wilderness leading to the Xianling sect. The sunlight tore the cloud layer and smashed hard on the towering castle in the far square mountain land, and a domineering momentum hit the face, making people feel burned in their chests. Lin Jun clenched his fists, his mouth slightly raised, and his heart seemed to be ignited. "This is the starting point for my turn, and who should not try to hold me back?" The stone platform in front of the mountain gate was as broad as a battle scene, with hundreds of testers slamming together, muttering in a low voice, and roaring in a rippling roaring with expectations. The air flows in the air, like an invisible wave slaps everyone's flesh. Lin Jun stood in the crowd, his eyes swept over the sect archway that was so loud that it entered the clouds. Later, it was set on a huge stone tablet with the rules of the test. The spiritual pressure test requires half a time in the high-pressure spiritual atmosphere, and it has to fight against the spiritual projection of the demon beast. This broken thing is clearly used to torture people. Lin Jun gritted his teeth and lowered his head, and turned to look at Su Rong. "Do you see what's the name? Is there a similar way to the boundary of the forest?" Su Rong was eye-catching and stared at the stone carefully. The slanting edge of the monument, which was radiating from a slanting light, said in a low voice, "The spirit on the right is regular, but the middle seems to be torn open, which should be a breakthrough. After you go in, touch the edge first, and don't bump into it." Her voice was calm, and there was a worry hidden. "Breakthrough? Hey, I like this one the most." Lin Jun grinned and glanced at Li Hen. You are a casual cultivator who has seen this kind of scheming before. You need to remind me if you have any tricks. Li Hen wiped the soil on his face, and his voice was sturdy. If you hit it, you have a big move hidden in the middle of this spiritual pressure, but the pressure on the edge will become weaker repeatedly. After you go in, don't come in and find a rhythm first. His eyes were rarely seen, as if he wanted to prove that he was not eating for nothing. Lin Wu pointed at the head and turned his eyes to the last yun of the team. The old man in gray robe had both hands in his back, his eyes were as cold as ice slag, and he looked around and seemed to look down on anyone. Lin Jun shook him and slammed his chin. Old, are you familiar with this place? If you have anything to throw it out. Yun snorted coldly, saying that he was cold and said, the environment is still good, but you can't even touch it by relying on fists alone. Brain is more effective than punching. As he finished speaking, his feet moved slightly, as if waiting for Lin Jun to react. I understand, I remember. Lin Jun's fist tightened and his heart was even more intense. He lowered his head and took out the spirit crystal in his arms, rubbed the runes on it with his fingertips, and moved rapidly in his brain. The energy jump of this thing, and the spirit of the trial field are intimately called. Could it be put on the field? As he was thinking, his remaining light swept to the edge of the trial floor. A normal-dressed guard stood there, his eyes seemed to stay on the spirit crystal in his hand for a few more seconds. The spirit flow that guarded the body was a bit similar to the rune, which made Lin Jun's heart jump, but he immediately gritted his teeth and threw away this thought. It's probably because I'm too nervous, so I'll talk about it first. The trial opened soon, and Lin Wu entered the core area of the spiritual pressure. In an instant, a violent spirit hit him like a landslide, causing his bones to squeak. The light curtain on his body surface was shaking as if it was about to break, and his strength was even more stable. He bit his teeth tightly, his feet tightly on the ground, and the reminder of Su and Li Hen in his brain, and his will pierced the spirit flowing on the right side like a knife. There is indeed a regular wave there, like a gap that can be used to diamond past. Just start this. Lin Jun growled, his figure suddenly flashed to the side, and the light curtain resisted the first wave of shock, and a heavy buzzing bird appeared. The pressure is like a blade scraping, and the light curtain is crazy and absorbs attack, reducing the damage and climbing to 15%. He gasped, and his heart felt like he had blood in his heart. Every time he was hit, the Shengang protection would be harder. Those shattered pieces that had been stepped on me, wait, I wouldn't even have the courage to take action. Lin Jun, the gap on the right side is shrinking, change position quickly. Su Jun's voice came from the outside of the piercing pressure, urgent and clear. Lin Jun gritted his teeth and responded to the sound, and his figure moved again, and the light curtain was pressed to a point of skin, but at this moment, he felt a strange reaction, the absorbed spirit, which turned into power, and turned back into his body, making the light curtain thicker. Is this a new way? Lin Jun's eyes flashed and he growled, hey, the spirit is back. What a guy, you can still replenish your blood when you get beaten. My defense is so hard that it will make people collapse. His heart thumped, thinking about how to squeeze this ability to the extreme. As long as you reduce the damage and hit it, you can directly crush the opponent when you counterattack. The pressure in the air increased sharply, and a spiritual projection that simulated the demon beast roared and slapped, and its claws were like balls, slashing Lin Wu's chest. He refused to retreat and turned on, and the light curtain opened with all his might, taking the strike. The geese exploded, and the light curtain trembled violently, and the damage was finally broken through 2%. The force of retraction exploded instantly, causing a faint wave of air to project the demon beast back half a step back. Happy. Come again. Lin Jun shouted, his roar was burning like fire. Every attack made his shield thicker, and every reversal made him feel the power was moving in the muscles. Su Rong, who was outside the courtyard, held the wooden stick tightly, and said in a low voice, your light curtain is swallowing pressure, keep it. I saw the spirit in the middle gathering, and there is a big move. Li Hen also shouted, to the left, it will calm down and you can catch your breath. Lin Jun pointed at them and felt a stronger desire in his heart, this is just the first priority. What I want is not only over the top, but also to climb to the top with everyone's shock. Those mouths that once laughed at me as a waste, when I stand up, you can only kneel. He bit his teeth and withstood the last few waves of impact until half an hour passed, and the pressure of the magic weapon dissipated. After the trial, Lin Chen dragged his tired body out of the way, sweat flowed down the angular corners, but there was no trace of air in his eyes. The stamina of the sturdiness is about 2%, and the ability to retract the energy is also initially formed. He gasped and grinned, "It's done. I've come here." On the stone ridge in front of the sect hall, a warm light under the sunlight, a long boss strode forward, and his voice rolled like thunder. "Lin Chen, through the spiritual pressure, he has officially become a disciple of the Xianling sect." The sound of his palm burst out from the surrounding area. Lin Chen straightened his spine, and a heat surged in his heart. From the mudland in the border town to the point where he is standing on this stage, I gritted my teeth and walked right on this road. "Brother, fuck you beautifully." Li Hen patted his shoulder, his words became a little more sincere. Suing approached and said in a low voice, "I knew you could do it. In the future, no matter what kind of wind, I will be there." Her eyes were warm, which made Lin Jun's chest hot, and he grinned, "Don't worry if you say this." Yun stood far away and snorted coldly, "You can get over it. But remember, this is just starting out, and the real sword and real gun are still behind." His temperament was still cold, but his pace was closer than before, as if he was watching without sound. Lin Chen twisted his head and smiled, his fists clenched. I understand. In the future, I will hit the highest point step by step, wait and see." At this moment, Lin Jun's eyes accidentally swept to the guard who was standing by the test site again. The other party was slowly turning away, and the fluctuations around his body still showed an indescribable slightness. Lin Chen had a slight brow and a sense of anxiety rose in his heart. Is this guy really just an ordinary guard? What happened to that familiar movement? After a few days, Lin Chen recovered from the fatigue of the spiritual pressure test and officially entered the spiritual hall of the Xianling sect. The sunlight penetrates the tall stone windows, and on the bluestone floor of the gathering hall, the spirit in the air is like a warm wind, gently smearing the crowd, making people feel comfortable all over. The hall was extremely popular, and new disciples gathered together, expressing their expectations for the future on their faces. Lin Chen stood in the crowd, his eyes swept around, his lips pursed, and a warm current in his chest quietly swelled. He secretly calculated, isn't this place the opportunity for me to turn over? The mud smell of the town is still on the tip of his nose, but today, he wants to break the road with one punch. Hey, Lin Chen. I heard that you were holding the soul pressure when you tried to get it, and even the projection of the demon beast was lying on the ground. You really have it. A rough sound exploded from the side. Lin Chen turned his head and saw that it was Zhang Fu, the burly guy who was full of facial fighting, still holding a pair of broken iron fists in his hand, smiling like a wolf ready to eat. Zhang Hui, trying to figure out that little thing is nothing. The tough battle behind the head is the real sign. Lin Chen grinned, patted his chest, and then lowered his voice, but the pressure of that method is really strong. I rely on the light curtain to death and reluctantly find a way. What did you do? Is there any trick? He said that he urged the spirit inside his body, carefully sensed the flow around him, and tried to grasp this ability more firmly. Zhang Hao laughed and clenched his fist suddenly. I know how to smash it. No matter what pressure it is, it will hit it all the way. But your defense is quite evil. We will pass the move another day, and it will see who will be harder. His eyes were flashing with the light of challenge, but his spirit was filled with a bit of sincerity. At this moment, a cold voice cut in, the power can be high for a while, but it will last for a lifetime. Lin Chen, your spirit is still unstable. Don't resist with the help of light. You have to learn to borrow it, otherwise you will be retaliated sooner or later. Yin Xiang walked up at some point, his gray robe shook slightly, his eyes still as cold as a knife. He had both hands behind his back and stopped on Lin Jun's side, half a step closer than usual. Since the trial, this old man will occasionally look at him a few more times. This time he actively opened his mouth, which was like a default. Lin Jun raised his eyebrows slightly and said seriously, "Master, I understand. But how to borrow this? Is there any way to say it?" His temperament was full of the desire to learn, and his heart was quickly moved. This old man was hard-hearted and soft-hearted. Every time he was poisonous, he could always point to the key points and follow his studies and make progress. Yun snorted coldly, and his voice was low. "I was in the northern wilderness that year and encountered similar methods. I just resisted it hard, and I almost got crushed by the spirit. Later I realized that spirit is not an enemy, but a weapon that can be used. You have to guide it and turn it into your armor, not a thorn." His voice fell, his eyes flashed slightly, as if he had fallen into a memory, but soon returned to cold. Lin Jun was shocked when he heard this, and his fists were clenched unconsciously. It turned out that this old man had suffered too. "Okay, I remember that spirit is not a dead thing, it is a useful guy." He tilted his head and smiled at the corner of his mouth. "Thank you, Master, for your advice. I will try to turn it around." After the gathering, Lin Jun followed the crowd to the mock battle scene of the Ting Tang. As soon as I stepped into the field, the air was as heavy as a boil. The projection of the spirit condensed into a bulb. The low growl made the eardrum numb, making people's blood burn quickly. Lin Jun stood in front of the team, his eyes locked in front of him, and the light curtain of the protective body quietly opened, reducing the stability and stuck at 2%. "This training is a group battle, you must work with us to resist these projection beasts. Remember, don't just look at yourself." Yun stood on the side of the field, his voice cold like a knife, and his eyes were staring at Lin Jun, as if he was examining his response. "Received." Lin Jun shouted loudly, his figure rushed forward, Zhang Hao followed closely, and the iron fists burst out with dazzling light, projecting directly at the giant wolf that was coming. Lin Wu did not avoid it, and the light curtain was fully opened, and the claws were hit hard by another lion projection. The bird exploded, the light curtain trembled violently, and the spirit returned to the body instantly, making his defense thicker. "It's great! Come again!" Lin Jun gritted his teeth and growled, his eyes filled with war. He suddenly felt a strange wave. The absorbed spirit not only strengthened the light curtain, but also spread out like water waves, forming a short protective range, covering Zhang Jiao. Zhang Hui was stunned for a moment and laughed. "What a guy, can you still protect your brothers with this trick?" "That's all." Lin Jun was panting, his brain was flying fast. This is a new way, the spirit is turbulent. Not only can he hold on to himself, but he can also help his teammates stay on top. He has to squeeze every little of his potential in this power. Left side. The spirit projected by the bear is surging, be careful. Yun Luo's voice pierced again, and there was a hurricane in the coldness. Lin Jun suddenly turned his body, and the light curtain opened with all his strength, resisting the heavy blow of Xiongning. The impact force made his knees slightly sway, but his spirit burst out in an instant, causing a circle of air waves to emerge, forcing the bear shadow to retreat several steps. "Fuck it well, Lin Jun. Stay calm and lead the spirit to a weak point." Yun's voice had not changed, but his steps did not seem to be moving forward half a step forward, as if he was sympathetic to his performance. After the training, Lin Jun dragged his tired body to the rest area, sweat flowed down the angular, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. He sat on the stone bench and muttered in a low voice, "This spirit is so refreshing, not only can protect me, but also brothers. I think of those lonely days in the town. This ability may be turned into a wall to protect more people." A desire surged in his heart. One day, he will use this power to make all enemies kneel down. "Brother, your move is so bright today. That circle of anti-war waves saved my life." Zhang Qi walked over, sat down, and took a sip with a water bag in his hand. He was full of admiration. Lin Jun grinned and was about to open his mouth when he swept to a piece of stone fragments in the corner of the rest area. The fragments emitted a faint light, and the spirit movement was intimately resonating with the spirit crystal in his mind. His eyebrows were slightly snaked, and a little doubt rose in his heart. This thing. Why does it look so similar to the strange smell on the trial site? But when he thought about it, he shook his head again. It's probably because I'm too careful. What kind of thing can be hidden in this broken place? Lin Juncheng, today's performance exceeded expectations, but don't relax. The real road is still very long. Yun walked closer and spoke coldly, but his language was a little more peaceful than before. His figure was stretched out under the sun, and it seemed that he had stayed intentionally for a while before turning away. The next morning, the police bell at the Zodiac door exploded like thunder, tearing the dead silence of the rest area apart. Lin Jun suddenly popped up from the stone bench. The soreness of the training yesterday was still in his bones, but when he pulled the corner of his mouth, there was a hidden fire in his eyes, and he said in a low voice, "Come on. I'm waiting for this day and my neck is sore." Nowhere far away, Yunlu's gray robe drifted in a gray robe. He was moved, his face was as cold as a piece of iron, and his voice was filled with unforeseen pressure. "Lin Jiaqing, bring Zhang Jia and a few kids, and immediately go to the outer beast domain with me. The middle-level demon beast has come in. This is your first tough battle. Don't show me the eyes. Master, don't worry, I will never take a step back." Lin Jun grinned, as if a fire was burning in his chest, and he twisted his head and shouted, "Brother, go, kill those beasts." Zhang Jun patted Lin Jun's shoulder, and his eyes were a little more familiar. He smiled, and the iron fists hit him suddenly, making a harsh metal sound. "The hand is already dead. Who can beat me to the way, and I punch you into a meat paste?" The team quickly gathered and followed Yun straight to the beast domain outside the Xianling sect. As soon as I stepped into the deserted woodland, the air was as heavy as a rock. The cold wind wrapped around the low roar of the far away, and the fluctuations of the spirit coming from the face made the skin tighten. Lin Jun took a deep breath, and the light curtain of the divine gang protector quietly opened, reducing his wounds and stability in 2 parts, and his eyes swept forward like a knife. He thought in his heart, these middle-level monsters are not fakes in the training ground, and fighting head-on is seeking death, and he has to catch them and break the ball and kill them. Note that the spirit ahead is as turquoise as porridge. The first wave is coming. Yun shouted coldly. His body was not moving, but his eyes were as sharp as a blade. As the voice fell, 3 thunder wolf burst out from the forest, and its body was slammed into a crackling sound, and its impulse was as cruel as a mountain collapse. Lin Jun yelled, "I'm in front of me, Zhang Hu, you can take a chance." His steps were wrong, and the light curtain exploded with all his might, and he took the next thunder wolf strike. Rush! The arc hit the light curtain, which made his arms numb, but his spirit instantly scattered, and even carried a teammate beside him. "Good fucking! Look at my fist!" Zhang Hui roared and raised his fist gloves, and a dazzling light burst out, cracked the mountain and collapse. He hit the other thunder wolf's brain hard, directly flying for several feet, and couldn't twitch when he landed on the ground. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly and felt the flow of the thunder wolf spirit in detail. Suddenly his heart lit up and he said to himself, "There is a gap in the arc of this beast. He will close it every time he attacks. This is the opportunity. Borrow the force and fight back. Don't be a sandbag." Yun's voice pierced from behind, as cold as ice, but there was a hint of anxiety. Lin Wu pointed his head and adjusted his breathing violently, causing the spirit inside his body to move like a river. The light curtain no longer just guarded the dead, but instead burst out with a recoil wave with the next blow of the Thunder Wolf. Bang! Thunder Wolf was repelled by his own force and retreated, with a flash of intent in his eyes. Lin Jun panted heavily, his eyes getting hotter. "It's done. This recoil can throw the force back, and my injury has become thicker, almost 30%. Boy, there's a little bit of a doorway. Keep calm and lead the spirit to the other party's breakthrough." Yun's verbal spirit did not change, but his steps couldn't help but move the front half of his step, and there was a little bit of inconspicuous recognition in his eyes. Zhang Fu laughed and said, "Lin Jun, you are poisonous. Next time I will be a target, so you will be extremely limited in trying." The battle instantly turned white and hot, and the team was forced into the depths of the beast domain. The surrounding spirits were as chaotic as the wind, and the roar and the sound of the collision mixed together, and Lin Wu's pressure increased sharply. Suddenly, a stone-armored bear roared and killed it, and every step made the ground crack, and the giant claws slammed down and brought a terrifying pressure. At this moment, the sand in the forest suddenly collapsed, the forest slid down, and the whole person fell a little. Shijiaxiang took advantage of the situation and his heart sank. It's bad, this environment is strange and cannot be taken over. You have to change it. Zhang Jiao, hold it in front of you, I'll find a chance to break its soft ribs. Lin Jun shouted, while the light curtain was fully opened, and the power of the recoil was ready to be developed. The storm exploded, and his knee was slightly swung, and he was pushed and slipped several steps, but the anti-shock wave shook the stone-armored bear back, and the bear's palm even collapsed and cracked. Zhang Hao roared and pushed up, and the iron fist hit him. Come on, beast, look at you. He forced the stone armor bear to pay full attention. Lin Jun took advantage of the side to avoid it, gathered his fist tips and shouted softly, breaking armor. He punched the stone armor bear's abdomen, and the recoil force exploded at the same time. He only heard a painful roar, and the big body fell to the ground, slamming the dust in the sky. He gasped and a sense of pleasure surged in his heart. This tough battle has passed. But it is not enough. No matter how fast the recoil is, no matter how high the reduction is, I want all enemies to dare not touch them. The battle finally stopped, and the team dragged their tired bodies to the temporary camping area beside the Zodiac. The remaining spirit flows slowly in the air, bringing a kind of exhausted and peaceful atmosphere. Lin Jun sat on a big rock, gasping for breath, feeling the sturdiness increase to 30%, and the power of the shock was getting easier. A sense of satisfaction surged in his heart, and a little uneasy. The collapse of the ground just now was not like a natural phenomenon. Could it be that someone was secretly making trouble? But he quickly broke the mystery and recalled the days when people were trampled under his feet in the small town. The humiliation was engraved in his heart. No matter what the hell is, I have to climb to the top, so that those who look down on me can only look up at my shadow. Master, this recoil is like a spirit retracted, but sometimes it dissipates. How can I control it well? Lin Jun wiped his sweat and asked Yun. His words were full of desire. Yun stood far away, his eyes still cold, but his words were a little calmer. The spirit is not a dead thing, it is living water. You have to let it flow and use its counterattack to protect more people. When I was young, I fought the tide of the beast with my brothers in the northern wilderness. A mistake was made to cause serious injuries. Then I realized that no matter how strong a person is, he cannot withstand the battle of the lonely army. Lin Jun was shocked when he heard this, and he silently clenched his teeth in his heart. I never want to look back on the hard days of the town. This power is not only for oneself, but also for the people around you. He said to the junction of the clouds, Master, I understand. Thank you for your advice. I will practice this trick so well, and I will not let my brothers eat it. Hey, Lin Jun, next time I'll try it as a target. I won't cry out for pain. Zhang Qi walked over, sat down, laughed and patted his shoulder, and held a piece of demon slaughter in his hand. Lin Jun grinned, lowered his head and casually raised a piece of stone fragments on the ground. He glanced at it, his eyebrows slightly said, This thing is a bit weird, and the patterns are not very good at the training ground. After saying that, he stuffed it into it with his hands, just a small break after the battle, without thinking too much. The sunlight is getting westward, and the smell of nitrazine remains in the air in the camp. Lin Jun relied on the big stone to calm down his eyes and couldn't stop calculating in his heart. This battle was just an appetizer, and the bigger win was still behind. Whether it is the demon beast or the ghost in the dark, I have to crush it one by one and stand to the highest point. The night was dark, and the bloody atmosphere of the day remained in the temporary camps beside the beast domain. The fire was swaying, reflecting the distorted shadows of the surrounding trees, as if there were countless ghosts hidden. Lin Jun leaned against a cold stone, closed his eyes and adjusted his breath. The just concluded inspection made his muscles scream, but there seemed to be a fire burning in his chest. He clenched his fists tightly, and he flashed through his brain. His sturdy stability was stuck at 30%, and the recoil force became more and more smooth. He grinned, his teeth tightly bit, thinking if you get hit a few more times, this force can be even stronger. If you come to mess with me, you will let him feel the feeling of being blown away. Lin Jun, don't be too slow. I just received the news that there was something strange in the deep forest. Take people to explore, don't let those beasts or dogs in secret play with flowers. Yun's voice came from beside the fire, still as cold as a piece of iron, but there was a hint of anxiety in the words. Lin Jun raised his head suddenly, with a flash of shiny light in his eyes, and replied in a deep voice, "Master, hand it over to me. I'm just worried that there's no place to exhale." He twisted his head and hooked his hand. "Brother, come with me to meet those who are not long-lived." Zhang Hu patted his chest, and the iron fists burst out with a crisp sound, and he laughed and said, "As long as you have the shock as your backlash, I won't be afraid of it." The team quickly put it on and entered the dark forest deep in the beast domain. The air was biting cold, and the night wind shaved, bringing a fishy smell. The low roar of the beasts in the distance continued, making people's backs swell. Lin Jun walked in front, and the light curtain of the divine's sturdy body seemed to be invisible. He stared at the surroundings, carefully every step, and calculated in his heart, the spirit of this broken place was as chaotic as it was, with 80% ambush, and he had to grasp every movement and static. After walking deep into the forest for a few steps, the bushes next to them suddenly exploded, and the three-headed horned rhinoceros roared out, and the spirit on the horns was as if they were about to crush everything. At the same time, two black shadows were swept from the tree crown, and the short blade of cold light in their hands was flashing, and the spirit waves were more poisonous than the demon beast. Lin Jun's eyes hopped and he shouted, "There is an ambush." Zhang Hao stayed on the top of those beasts. "I'll clean up these two ghost shadows." Everyone else guarded their positions. The light curtain exploded in an instant, and the recoil force was filled. His whole person shook the black shadow like a mountain. Splitting the air fist. Lin Jun shouted softly, and his fist wrapped in spirit and smashed hard at one of the black shadows. The opponent's short blade slammed and wanted to slam it hard. However, the recoil wave directly made his arms tremble and his feet stumbled. Lin Jun's eyes flashed with a ruthless look, and he chased and carefully sensed the flow of the other party's spirit, and seized the distraction after each attack. His heart moved, "It's now." When he punched again, the recoil force exploded like thunder, and directly drove the other party to fly for several feet. When he hit the ground, a large mouthful of blood leaked out of his mouth. "Zhang Hui, by the way, I will use a shock to open the way for you, don't run away." Lin Jun roared, and on the side of his body, the light curtain spread to Zhang Hui, just in time to catch the impact of the iron-horned rhinoceros. Rush! The huge force was swept back by the light curtain, and the beast screamed and was knocked over by his own impulse. Zhang Hu looked at the empty file and a red light burst out from the iron fist gloves and shouted, "Broken rock." He hit the other demon beast's head, and a big pit was smashed into the ground, and the soil was flying. "Boy, you finally touched the door and used the flow of spirit to stop the enemy's rhythm, which is good." Yun stood behind, his voice still cold, but his language speed was half a beat faster than usual, as if he was suppressing some emotion. He didn't move, his eyes swept through every corner of the battleground like a keel, his fingers clenched slightly, as if he was ready to take action at any time. Lin Jun panted heavily and grinned, "Master, this is wherever you go. I want to practice this recoil so that people can't get up if they get hit." The battle became more and more intense, and the sound of the spirits colliding in the deep forest was like thunder exploding, and every battle caused a violent wave. Lin Jun bit his teeth and focused all his energy on the protective body of the divine gang. The light curtain was no longer just a beating, but instead took the initiative to throw the enemy's strength back. The second-place black shadow slashed with a blade. He didn't dodge, but took it hard and shouted softly, "Res Hawk." The airwaves rolled back like a ray of light. The other party did not expect this move, and was hit hard by his own force and fell down with blood. "Lin Jun, be careful behind you." Zhang Qi roared and reminded him that a horned rhinoceros took advantage of the trouble. Lin Jun could not turn around, so he could only use all his strength to lift the light curtain. The storm exploded, and the huge force was swept back. The demon roared and retreated, but the remaining waves still shocked Lin Jun's knees and bleeding from the corners of his mouth. He wiped his face, his eyes became more swelling, and the scene of being stepped on by someone when he passed the town in his brain. I will never suffer that kind of humiliation again. Every time you get a little more beaten, the defense will be harder, and the counterattack will be harder. Come on, who is afraid of who? The battle finally stopped, and the team dragged their tired bodies back to the camp. The night wind shaved, carrying the stinging pain of coldness, making people unable to help but shrink their shoulders. Lin Junpan sat on the ground, gasping for breath, feeling the stability of the injury was maintained at 30%, and the power of the shock was becoming more and more mature. He was swept through his brain with a just-in-one battle scene and thought to himself, the paths of those two black shadows are too strange. They are not like casual cultivators from the outer sect, but have a little shadow of inner disciples. Can someone really make a fool in secret? Brother, today's battle, please give me a lot. Last time, you saved me from the giant python in the zodiac. I remember this kindness. If you have anything to do in the future, we will bear it together. Zhang Qian walked over and patted Lin Chen's shoulder heavily, his eyes full of seriousness. Lin Jun slammed his hand and replied with a smile, whatever you want to do is it, it's all my brothers. Next time you'll get a knife from me. The two of them looked at each other and laughed loudly, with a little more stubborn air. Yun stood far away, his eyes swept over the battlefield and said in a low voice, the spirit is alive. You have to guide it with its will in order to truly turn defense into attack. Today, you remember that you can never go far by relying on yourself. His voice was still cold, but his steps were approaching a little, and his fingers were relaxed, as if he had put down a certain ring. Lin Jun felt excited and said, Master, I understand. No matter how hard the battle is, I have to protect the people around me. When cleaning up the battle scene, Lin Junyi accidentally kicked a piece of cloth covered with soil, which looked inconspicuous, but when he pulled his waist up, he glanced at the detailed spiritual patterns engraved on it, and he always felt that there was nothing wrong with it. He stared at his eyebrows for a moment, rubbed his fingers against the surface of the cloth, and there was a flash of doubt in his eyes, muttering in a low voice, how come this line isn't the same as the defense of the sect? He immediately rushed to the head and stuffed the cloth into it, just as a break on the battlefield. But the bottom of my heart seemed to have a block of stones, heavy. The night became increasingly heavy, and the fire in the camp was getting light and dark. Lin Chen leaned against the stone to calm down, and his fingers subconsciously groped the cloth in the air. Various thoughts stormed in his brain, and a flame ignited in his chest. No matter whether it is a demon or a black hand behind him, no matter what kind of ghost name hidden in this beast, I will tear the truth step by step and stomp all the stones into ashes. The next morning, there were only a few dark scents left in the fire at the campground. The morning fog was like a layer of cold thin sieve covering the broken tent. The air around it was so irritating that it made people's bones numb, and it also stinked the fishy smell from the depths of the beast. Lin Jun stood up from the stone block he leaned against, clasping the rag strip that he had picked last night in his hand, staring at the spirit on it like a knife. His fingers were rubbing the rough edges unconsciously, and there seemed to be a thunder explosion in his brain. Every scene of the battle last night flashed in front of him, the black shadow's spirit, the violent force of the demon's snatch, the pleasure of the recoil force burst out. How can this road be seen like a guideline? Lin Jun, does the wound still hurt? Your mouth was bleeding last night, don't show off. Suing walked over from the pen tent, holding a small bottle of medicine in her hand. Her voice was light and soft, and she couldn't hide her worry. She squatted down, carefully looked at the bloody marks on Lin Jun's arm, and her eyebrows slightly raised. Lin Jun lowered his head and grinned, this little injury is a big deal. Being beaten is my best choice. However, the more I look at this cloth, the less I feel, the less I am against it. It seems that someone deliberately guides us, trying to kill us. Su Xiao pointed his head and passed the ointment over, and said in a low voice, your brain is moving faster than anyone else. If there is a ghost, you will definitely not be able to avoid you. Be careful, we can't take it anymore. Lin Chen took the ointment and applied it twice with his hands, but his eyes never left the cloth for a moment. A heat blew from his chest, and he gritted his teeth in his heart. No matter who is doing something behind his back, I will sooner or later find you and make you kneel down and beg for a favor. He closed his eyes and poured a silk spirit into the cloth, feeling the waves on it carefully. Sure enough, the pattern emitted a faint familiar atmosphere, which was like a slight attack of the black shadow last night. Lin Chen slid his eyes suddenly, his fists clenched and sneered in a low voice, "What a guy, it's really a trap. If you want to lead us into the depths of the beast domain, it is probably Zhao Li's handwriting." His eyes swept over the edge of the cloth, and a small vague symbol came into his eyes, like a certain plant pattern, but it was damaged. He was flickering with an inexplicable anxiety, and he immediately slammed his head, just as the mark left by the war scene, and he didn't think about it anymore. Nowhere far away, Yunyi stood beside the fire. The flames made his face cold, his eyes slapped at Lin Chen from time to time, and his fingers knocked on the handle of the waist, as if suppressing something. Lin Chen noticed his visual line, got up and walked over, opened the cloth directly, and said in a deep voice, "Master, this path is exactly the same as the spiritual waves of last night. It is definitely a trap. Some people want to pit us in, but they probably have ambushed in front of them." Yun glanced down and was silent for a moment. His voice was still hard, but his speech was slower. "Well, Lin Chen, the spirit is as bright as blood. If you look at the flow, you can turn the world back. I also stepped on this pit in Beijing that year and almost crawled out. Remember, the way the enemy gave me was hidden from time to time." He paused, and a difficult gentleness flashed in his eyes. "You can see that this is faster than I thought." Lin Chen heard the chest hot, his fingers clenched the cloth tightly, and he growled, "Don't worry, teacher, no matter what ambush, I will tear it away. Whoever dares to count on me will let him know what regrets." The scene of his head being stepped under his feet when he was flickered through the small town, and the humiliation made his bones tremble like fire. "I must climb to the highest point and crush these dangerous guys into pieces." Suing sat next to her, listening quietly, her eyes filled with trust. "Lin Chen, you must be able to do it. I even sweated for you when you saw you resist so many attacks last night and still be able to fight back. Thinking about it now, you are getting more and more hurt." Lin Chen grinned at her. "That's right, even the Demon King can punch him with one punch." Before he finished speaking, a deep roar suddenly came from a distance, and the ground shook slightly. Lin Chen stood up suddenly, and the light curtain of the Shengang protector instantly opened, and a ruthless look flashed in his eyes. "Good, come. Master, Suing, come with me to meet these dead beasts." Yun pointed slightly, his figure flashed, and was already at the forefront of the team. Su Xiao quickly packed up his capsule and said in a low voice, "I will follow you and help you calm your injuries at any time." The team quickly expanded deep into the beast area. The forest became darker and darker, and the surroundings were as violent as boiling water, making people's backs swell. Lin Chen walked in front, holding the cloth tightly with his fingers, carefully taking every step, and counting in his heart, "Since it is a trap, the scourge must be ahead. I have to pile up the damage, and the recoil force must be exercised to the extreme, so that these guys can suffer their own hardships." As soon as he stepped into an open space, the surrounding shrubs suddenly exploded, and 5 blood-clawed wolves roared out, and the spirit on his claws was like a blade, and he rushed straight into him. At the same time, the spirit waves in the crown above storm surged, and 3 black shadows fell from the sky with long spears, killing them so hard that the air solidified. Lin Chen twitched his eyes and shouted, "There is an ambush." After Su Wang retreated, my teacher and I stayed at the top. The others guarded their positions. His entire body of light curtain exploded, and the recoil force was accumulated to an extreme limit. The whole person faced the blood-clawed wolf like an iron tower. A wolf claw slapped hard, and the huge force hit the light curtain, and was turned back. The beast howled and fell a few feet away. Lin Chen bit his teeth tightly, feeling the sturdiness of his injury, and his sturdiness rose to 50%. He was ecstatic. "The more he was beaten, the harder I was. He suddenly adjusted his spirit, and a strange wave burst out from the light curtain. The recoil was no longer just a simple burst, but a strange force that interfered with the enemy's spirit. "The spirit is blowing. Return your strength back." Lin Jun shouted angrily, and an invisible wave of air burst out from the light curtain. A blood-clawed wolf just came up, and was shocked by this force, and his body froze directly in the air. He grabbed the opportunity and punched it out, splitting the air fist. The fist was like thunder, and it directly swept the beast, and it was gone when it hit the ground. Yun was shaped like a wind, his hands were rising and falling, and a cold light broke the attacks of the two black shadows, saying coldly, "Lin Jun, guard the left side, I clear the right side." His rage was extremely sharp, and every move was straightforward, but his pace was never far away from Lin Jun, as if he was guarding it in the dark. Suing stood behind, pressed his palm on the ground, chanted the mantra with a low voice, and a circle of soft light covered the team, allowing the crowd to get hurt quickly and calm. Lin Jun panted heavily, his eyes became more thirsty, and a raging flame ignited in his heart. "Zhao Lai, what is your breaking through this situation? Not only do I want to tear your trap, but I also want you to see how ruthless the counterattack is." He urged the spirit to storm again, and the light curtain spread to the limit, rolling in the last blood-claw wolf and a black shadow at the same time. The airwaves rolled back and the opponent was beaten in an instant. Lin Jun grabbed the airfoil and shouted softly, "Crash!" He flew out and directly smashed the two of them for several feet, not knowing life and death. The battle gradually subsided, leaving only the silence of mess and pungent blood in the forest. Lin Jun stood there, gasping for breath, feeling the ease of injury stuck at 50%, and his new ability was getting more and more powerful. He wiped the sweat from his face, and the cold light flashed in his eyes. His fingers unconsciously touched the blurred symbol on the edge of the cloth, and a strange palpitation appeared in his heart. This thing seems to be hidden something bigger. In the clearings after the battle, the smell of blood was still swelling in the air, and the sunlight broke the shade of the tree crown and fell on the thin and hard back of the forest wall. He sat on a pitted rock, holding the broken cloth in his hand, his eyes as if he was about to pierce all the mist, staring at the spirits on it. The morning fog was scattered smoothly, and there was only the rustling sound of branches and leaves, but the pressure was like an invisible giant hand, pinching people's chest. Lin Wu closed his eyes and a long spiritual energy penetrated into the cloth like a thread on his fingertips. His spiritual energy quietly moved, trying to catch the vague wave. Every scene of the battle last night flew through his brain, and the killings of those black shadows and the flow of spirits were as clear as a knife in his heart. Suddenly, a faint sliver burst out from the spirit pattern, pointing directly to a certain direction deep in the beast domain. Lin Jun suddenly slapped his eyes, sneered at the corner of his mouth, and gritted his teeth in a low voice. "Zhao Lai, do you think I can't find it if I hide it deeply? This source is right in front of me, and I have to lift your dog today." Nowhere far away, Yun Xiang leaned against an ancient tree in the sky, tapped the handle with his fingers, and his eyes were filled with a little more difficult to detect when he swept over Lin Zi. He spoke in a low voice, his language was still cold and hard, but half a beat slower than usual. "Lin Jun, the spirit is a double-blade sword. Be careful not to put yourself in when you chase the source. I also fell in the follower in Beijing that year, underestimated the enemy's ambush and almost came back without a chance. Remember, knowing where is the first step, and how to smash it is the real ability." Lin Jun heard the chest hot, his fists clenched, and he said, "Master, I understand. This dog tricked me once, and there will never be a second time. The source is in a forest half a foot in front. We will kill it directly without waiting for them to move, and uproot the broken trap." He felt like a flame ignited in his heart, and the picture of someone trampling under his feet when he was flashing through the small town, and the humiliation was like a stinger in his heart. "Zhao Lai, I want to let you know today, how heavy is my price." Suing sat aside, holding a pill in her hand, and asked lightly, "Lin Jiaqing, can you take it after you finish the pill? If there is really an ambush, we can't fight hard." Her eyes were filled with grudges, but more of it was trust. Lin Jun grinned at her and patted her chest. "Don't worry, what's this little injury? You and me, with me, no one can touch your hair. As he fell, he suddenly stood up, the light curtain of the divine's sturdy body moved slightly, and the sturdy stability was stuck at 50%. His entire human atmosphere suddenly changed, like a sharp blade unsheathed. Yun glanced slightly, his figure flashed, and he was already standing in front of the team, and said in a low voice, "Let's go, Lin Jun." The spirit can not only prevent it, but also counteract. If used properly, it can make the enemy swallow the bitter fruit by itself. Lin Jun responded heavily, with a war in his eyes, and followed the team toward the forest land. Half a mile away, a clearing in front of me was covered with heavy shadows. The spirit in the air was like a boiling flood, and the pressure came over, making people's neck buzzing. Lin Jun's eyes flashed and he yelled in a low voice, "That's it. All the staff have ambush." As soon as the voice fell, several black shadows suddenly burst out from the bushes. 5 black-robed warriors came in with long swords. The spirit on the sword was like a poisonous snake spitting out a letter, and the killing was so full that it made the bones chill. "Kill them! Don't let this little messy make the young master's affairs." The man in black roared angrily, and the sword light was like thunder, slashing Lin Wu's brain. Lin Jun snorted coldly, the light curtain exploded instantly, and the recoil force was extremely accumulating. The whole portrait was not moving onto the mountain, and it was forced to rise. The knife was swept back hard on the light curtain. The man in black robe snorted and stumbled back 3 steps. "With this ability, dare to die? Let me crawl!" Lin Jun yelled, his spirit burst out, and an invisible wave of air swept across the world, not only trembling and opening his sword, but also plaguing the spirit inside the other party. The man in black robe moved, Lin Jun grabbed the broken hole and punched out, splitting the air fist. The fist was like a dragon rolling, and the other party was directly smashed for several feet, and he was no longer breathing when he landed on the ground. At the same time, other black shadows swept towards Yun and Su Wang. As soon as the cloud light flashed, the cold light was like a flash torn apart the night sky. The 2 enemies were severely injured before they could get close to each other, and the blood filled the ground. He said coldly, "Lin Jun, I will hand you the left side, I will clear the right side." Su Wang quickly retreated, pressed his palm on the ground, and a circle of soft light covered the team, stabbing the crowd to keep hurt. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly and resisted another heavy blow. The light curtain swayed slightly, but it was as stable as an iron wall. He suddenly felt that there was a sense of sensation in his body, and the absorbed attack force began to feed back to himself, like a flame burning in the blood. He was so excited that he growled, "This is the power of backlash? Being beaten can even make you stronger. Today I will make you cry even if you don't cry." He urged his new ability to activate, and the power of backlash exploded. The attack that was absorbed instantly turned into a red light, bursting out from the fist, directly hitting another man in black robe. "Come on this big gift." The red flames backfire. The light shone like a gun, the other party could not dodge and was penetrated by the front. The whole person screamed and flew backwards, not knowing life and death. The battle became more and more intense, and Lin Jun became more and more fierce. The backlash made him stronger every time he was beaten, and his vigor was as strong as a rainbow. Yun glanced at this scene and saw a flash of surprise in his eyes, but his temperament was still cold. "No, Lin Jun. If you use this ability well, you can stand in a place that will not be defeated." Lin Jun grinned, and his mind was full of ambition. "Master, please be careful, I not only want to win, but also want to win beautifully." The battle ended soon, with the ground covered with blood and pungent smell. Lin Jun panted heavily, wiped off the blood on his face, and his eyes closed the entrance of a secret cave in front of him. There was a heavy wave of spirit radiating from it, which was the core of the trap. He sneered, "Zhao Lai, your subordinates are all gone, now you are ruined. I'll burst into pieces." He raised his hand violently, and the backlash power condensed into a red column of light, directly reaching the depths of the cave. A huge sound was astonishing as the entire trap core collapsed into ruins, and the spirit waves finally dissipated. The team was safely dismissed. Lin Jun stood in front of the wall and swept over a blurred botanical pattern around the cloth in his hand. He glanced casually and then put it away. His heart was just a trace left by the battle. He clenched his fists tightly and a cold feeling came out from the corner of his mouth. Zhaoli, this is just the first step. I will sooner or later let you taste how profound this backlash feels. The waves of the collapse of the trap core were still scattered between the walls and walls. Gravel fell, and soil was scattered. Lin Wu stood beside the ruins. His eyes were like sharp blades hidden in the night, staring at a dark passage ahead. The intense spirit came out from the depths, like a poisonous snake spitting out a letter, inspiring him to get closer step by step. He wiped off the dried blood on his face, gritted his teeth and growled, Zhaoli, do you want to hold me like this broken thing? I'm delusional. The source of this spirit is inside. Today I have to dig out your trump card. Yun walked to him step by step, knocking on the ground lightly, and a low shock sounded. He glanced at the passage, and the sound was as cold as a cold iron, and there was a different calmness. Lin Wu, don't move. The stronger the spirit, the more ruthless the trap. I thought I could be hard at Beijing that year, but I almost buried my bones. No matter how bad you are, you have to rely on brothers. Let's go in together and be careful. Although his spirit was hard, it showed a little inconspicuous concern in the short pause. Suing walked quickly from behind, holding the pill tightly in her hand, and a hint of grief flashed in her eyes. Lin Jun, you just finished a game and your body has not yet come. If there is any ambush, don't be hard. I have a talisman here, you can take it, and you can take some danger. She passed a small wooden sign engraved with light patterns, and her voice was gentle and unstoppable. Lin Jun took the amulet, and the slight heat coming from his palm made him feel moved, and he grinned, don't worry, with me here, no one can move you. Let's go, there is nothing good to hide in this ghost place. I want to see what kind of flowers Zhaoli can play. He put the amulet on his waist, and the light curtain of the divine's sturdy body flashed slightly, reducing the stability and pressure by 50%. His air was like a tiger going down the mountain, and he stepped into the passage first. The deep grottos are dark and cold, and the damp stinking smell blows your nose, making people want to vomit. The gravel is constantly brittle when it is under the foot, and the air is as tight as if it is to explode at any time. Lin Jun squinted, his eyes half squinted, his fingertips poked out like a fine line, carefully sensing the waves remaining around him. Suddenly, he stepped a step, his eyes locked a dark spiritual pattern on the wall, and shouted softly, this is not an ordinary trap. This is a spiritual weapon, the energy is connected to each other, and directly smashing it will only cause a greater reversal. You have to find the broken wire and dismantle it step by step. In Yinshu, the sacred light flashed, illuminating a corner of the surrounding area, and his language was low, good eyesight, Lin Jun. I didn't see through this path that year and ate a big shot. You focused on exploring the flow of energy, and Su Rong and I guarded the surroundings. Remember, fighting alone is a dead end, and hand is the living. He shaped his body, and his defense was swaying, and his eyes were like a gecko. Su points his head, presses his palms lightly on the ground, and a circle of soft light spreads to protect everyone. She said in a low voice, I'll guard the back road, Lin Jun, let go and fuck me. If there is something to do, I'll be on the top. Her words were calm, and she couldn't hide her thoughts about Lin Jun's safety in her eyes. Lin Jun sat down on his knees, closed his eyes and focused his mind, his spirit diamonds into the core of the spirit like a silk, and his speed in his brain was faster than the attack force absorbed in the battle. A familiar heat flowed from his chest, and his thoughts couldn't help but fly to the humiliation that had passed. Zhaoli, when I dismantle this broken situation, sooner or later, you will pay 100 times the price for the humiliation you were originally. After a while, he suddenly opened his eyes, and a cold feeling curled up at the corner of his mouth. Finally. The breaking point of this lies in the flow of energy. I can suck its waves dry and directly counter it. He popped his fingertips, and a red light pierced into the spiritual pattern, and the core of the craft was shaking. However, at this moment, a low growl came from the depths of the stone cave, and the ground rubble shook violently. Su Yao's face changed, and she shouted urgently, "Oh no, something is coming." Before the words fell, a group of spirit beasts with scarlet eyes surged out from the narrow passage, with strange spiritual energy fluctuations entwined on their bodies, obviously controlled by the spirit array, and their offensive came like a flood. "Seek death!" Lin Chen suddenly stood up, the divine gang protective light curtain instantly exploded, forcibly withstanding the first wave of impact. He gritted his teeth, the backlash force operated wildly. Every hit he took, his internal spiritual energy surged a bit, reducing damage directly to nearly 60%. He roared, "Come on, I just need targets to practice my fists." Cracking sky fist. The fist wind was like thunder, directly smashing a giant wolf away. The sound of breaking bones was ear-piercing and loud. Yinsang's sword light was like a rainbow. In a flash, it split open two pouncing spirit leopards, and he said coldly, "Lin Chen, hold the core, I'll clear the flanks with Su Yao. Don't let these beasts disrupt your rhythm." His sword moves were as fast as lightning, each strike going straight for the vital points, coordinating seamlessly with Lin Chen. Su Yao slapped the ground with her palms repeatedly, turning into barriers of soft light, blocking several sneak attacks. She gritted her teeth and said, "Lin Chen, I can't hold on for too long, hurry up." Her voice was urgent, but she still guarded the rear firmly. The battle grew more intense. Lin Chen fought more and more wildly. Suddenly, a new pulse erupted from his internal spiritual energy. Those absorbed attack forces actually turned into a golden light ring, spreading from his body to cover the whole team. His eyes burned with fanaticism, and he growled, "This is Spirit Protection Rebound? I not only can withstand, but also boost you all. Everyone get ready." Where the golden light reached, Yinsang's sword momentum became even fiercer, Su Yao's barriers became more solid, and the three's combat power instantly surged. Refreshing. Bring on a few more waves, I'm not satisfied yet. Lin Chen roared, punching out, the red flame backlash light like a spear, directly piercing through a giant bear's chest, the opponent howling and falling to the ground. The spirit beast group was soon cleared to pieces, with wreckage all over the ground, and a pungent bloody smell. In the midst of panting, the three quickly turned toward the spirit array core area. In that open space, spiritual energy howled like a storm. The surrounding stone walls were engraved with complex patterns, and in the center, a small altar emitted a deadly oppressive force. Lin Chen glanced at a strange plant pattern beside the altar. A trace of inexplicable unease flashed in his heart, but he quickly shook it off, treating it as irrelevant decoration. He snorted coldly, "Zhao Lai, is this your last reliance? Watch how I smash it for you." He urged the spirit protection rebound forcefully, the golden light fusing with the backlash force, forming a dazzling light pillar, directly bombarding the altar core. Yinsang's sword light surged wildly, coordinating with Lin Chen's attack. A cold gleam tore through the storm, fiercely chopping at the altar's edge. "Break!" Su Yao fully enhanced the protection, shouting lowly, "Be careful of the backlash." Under the three's joint effort, the altar finally emitted a mournful sound, and the entire spirit array collapsed with a boom, the energy fluctuations completely dissipating. Lin Chen stood in front of the collapsed core, wiping off sweat. A heat flow rushed straight to his forehead, making him unable to help but grin. He clenched his fist, his eyes burning with even more intense fire. "No matter how many schemes lie ahead, I have to get stronger and trample all enemies under my feet." Yinsang patted his shoulder, rarely showing a slight smile. "Well done, Lin Chen. In this battle, you didn't disappoint me." Su Yao walked forward and stuffed a protective talisman into his hand, saying softly, "Don't always act tough. If there's danger next time, I won't let you off easily." Her gaze was warm, making Lin Chen's heart warm. He casually glanced at that plant pattern. That trace of unease surfaced again in his heart, but in the end, he didn't think much of it, only focusing his attention on the unknown road ahead. The aftermath of the spirit array's collapse still rumbled in the depths of the stone cave, rubble falling, dust choking. Lin Chen stood in front of the ruined altar, his chest heaving like a bellows, but his mouth pulled into a defiant arc. The surrounding spiritual energy was as thick as mud, sticking to the body and making one feel sick. Low and strange sounds drilled out from the stone wall crevices, like someone gnashing their teeth beside the ear. He clenched his fist, the divine gang protective light curtain flickering, the damage reduction already piled up to 60%. He chuckled lowly, his voice full of disdain. "Zhao Lai, is this all you've got to kill me? Wishful thinking. Up ahead is your lair, today I'll tear it apart completely." Yun Song stood aside with his sword, the sword tip lightly tapping the ground, emitting a harsh scraping sound. He glanced at the surging spiritual energy mist around, his tone as cold as ice. "Lin Chen, don't be too arrogant. The more chaotic this place is, the more vicious the hidden tricks. I used to think I could walk sideways in the northern abyss, but almost ended up there. Let's go together, don't go seeking death yourself." Although his words were blunt, in the pause, his gaze swept over Lin Chen with an imperceptible steadiness, like a silent reminder. Suing walked quickly, holding the pill tightly in her hand, her fingertips trembled slightly, and her voice was irreversible. "Lin Jun, you just finished the fight, but your body has not come yet. If this place is not in opposition, I will give you a protective exercise, at least it will cause more danger." She turned her hand and a faint rune appeared, slapped Lin Jun's shoulders lightly, and the warm spirit scattered like a stream of water, making the human bones relax a little. Lin Jun grinned, patted his shoulder, and said indifferently, "Okay, with me here, no one can move you. There is no good goods hidden in this broken land. Let's see how I smash it into pieces." He strode forward, and the light of the Shengang protector became brighter and brighter, and his entire human atmosphere stormed, like a wild beast that was scattered, directly rushing into the deepest part of the fog. The secret room of the cave was biting cold, the air was like a bowstring that would be broken at any time, and the stone walls around it were full of ghost talismans that were incomprehensible, and the whispers were scraping their ears like a knife, making people sweat from their backs. Lin Jun narrowed his eyes, and his fingertips poked out, groping around like a spider. Suddenly, his feet froze, his eyes locked at the intersection of the spirits, and he growled, "I found you. The core of this place is the energy accumulation point. As long as I break its path, I can absorb its power and kill it directly. Yun and Su Wang, guard both sides, don't let these ghost things harm me." Yun snorted coldly, and the long sword suddenly blew, and the cold light teared open the fog, pointing directly to the spirit flowing from the side. "Good vision, Lin Jun. I clean the floor, you are dedicated to breaking the sky. Remember, someone is seeking death, we have to kill them together." His figure flashed, and the sword moves like thunder, and each blow slashed the airflow that was scattered, and the defense line was as stable as an iron wall. Su Yan bit his lips tightly, pressed his palms on the ground, and a circle of soft light barriers spread out, protecting the three of them. She said in a low voice, "I'll guard the back, Lin Jun, let go and fuck me, I'll keep it on my feet if you have something to do." Her voice was a little anxious, but her eyes were as firm as a rock, so she kept the last line of defense tightly. Lin Jun sat down on his knees, closed his eyes and gathered his mind, his spirit pierced into the core of the weapon like a fine pin, and quickly flew in his brain and went back to every hit he had just suffered in the battle. His fists were clenched unconsciously, his fingers turned white, and a fire ignited in his heart. "Zhao Lai, I remember clearly the humiliation you gave me that day. When I climb up, you will never have the chance to kneel down and beg for a gift." After a while, he sniffed his eyes and said softly, "It's done. This is the weakness of the broken aura. I suck you dry." With a pop of his fingertips, a red light shot into the spiritual pattern, and the core of the entire aura began to shake violently. But at this moment, a strange air suddenly rolled up in the fog, and the low voice turned into a sharp scream, and the surrounding scenery twisted into a mysterious illusion. The virtual enemy came from the fog, and even had the past flashes of the picture, the scene where Lin Jun was slapped by Zhao Wei's palm and reappeared in front of him, and the sound of mockery pierced into his brain like a slight slapped. He had red eyes and roared, "Crash! Do you dare to come and feel disgusted with me? Break the air fist." The fist was like thunder, smashing a shadow directly, but more phantoms came, and the trial picture separated the three of them. The cloud sword light burst, and several phantoms were shattered in a flash, and he shouted coldly, "Lin Jun, don't get these ghost things. Our cooperation is the hard truth. Stay calm, I tear this side. His body was like electricity, and the long sword dance was hard to clear out a piece of open space for Lin Jun, and his movements were faster than usual, and he even took a few more energy. Suing patted her palms, and talisman lights poured into Lin Qiu's body, and she said anxiously, "We are all here, you are not alone. Stay calm, I will help you to suppress these affairs." Her spirit was like a warm wind, and the chaos in Lin Qiu's brain made him realize that it was clear and clear. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly, and the light curtain of the divine gang protects his body was flickering. Every time he hit it, the power inside his body suddenly surged, and the backlash turned into golden light and spread out. He shouted suddenly, "Good. If you hit a few more, I won't feel happy yet. This is a spirit retracement? I can not only resist, but also increase your strength. Catch it." Jing Guang swept over, Yun Lu's sword was even more ruthless, Su Yang's barrier was thicker, and the three-man's combat power was instantly raised. Break! Lin Jun punched out, and the light of the red flames scattered like a dragon rolling through the core of the maze, and the phantom on the opposite side turned into black smoke and scattered. He gasped, and a violent light ignited in his eyes. "I will be stronger with this power. No matter whether you are an illusion or a trap, you can't hold on to my path." The battle became more and more fierce, and the three of them cooperated more and more smoothly. The clouds are like rainbows, and each strike is directly at the critical point of the phantom. The barrier of Su is as stable as the mountain, guarding the back. The Lin Jun is becoming more and more crazy as the battle is, and the golden light intertwines with the fist, tearing the illusion to pieces. Finally, a huge sound shook the grottos, and the entire mist collapsed. The core of the sealed wall exploded and the remaining spirit dissipated like a wave. The three of them stood in front of the ruins. Lin Jun wiped his sweat and grinned, happy. "Shall I? Do you want to kill me with such a small trick? Next time I meet, I will beat you up so hard that I can't get up." He lowered his head and glanced at the ground, lifted up a piece of broken stone with blurred symbols engraved with a finger. His fingers felt a faint energy wave and then fell into it, just useless garbage. Yun Xiang stood still, and couldn't smile. "It's good to have sex, Lin Jun. You haven't lost anyone in this battle. There is still a way ahead, let's go." His spirit was still cold, but there was a little more recognition in his eyes. Su Rong walked forward, patted Lin Jun's shoulder lightly, and said in a low voice, "Don't always be in front. If there is another danger next time, don't resist. We are all here." Her eyes were warm, which made Lin Jun's heart slightly warm. He slapped and smiled, "Don't worry, with you here, what am I afraid of?" In front, a secret passage revealed its true appearance after the collapse, and an ancient and dangerous breath emerged from the deep darkness. Lin Jun clenched his fists tightly, and the fire in his eyes became even more intense. No matter what was ahead, I would step on it. Being stronger is my only way out. As the head of the secret passage was as thick as the fog was scattered, Lin Wu stepped into the entrance of the ancient secret realm in one step. The stone slabs under his feet were as cold as ice thorns, and the surrounding spirits were like crazy swelling, which made people unable to breathe. He bit his teeth tightly, his thin body stood straight, and the light from the divine weapon protective body flashed slightly, and the force of reducing injuries was ready to move in this irritable energy field. A group of fire in his heart was burning strongly, and he murmured secretly, "This ghost place hides my stronger key, I have to dig it out." Yun Xie stood beside the sword, with the sharp edge of the sword, his eyes swept across the surroundings like a knife, and his voice was as cold as ice. "Lin Jia, don't be stunned. There is a very evil gate here, and something may happen at any time. Follow the conflict, I will open the way." Although the words are hard, his figure was slashed with the breath, and Lin Jia was able to slash a stream of incoming weather, causing Lin Jia to slap the potential threat, and his movements were filled with a slight sturdiness. Su Rong was tightened, then a talisman was lying in her fingers, and her spirit was beating in her palms, and her language was filled with some urgent matters. "Lin Jun, the energy here is too irrelevant, I will provide you with protection first. You should focus on finding the thread, and I will hold it on my back if you have something to do." She slapped her palm, and a warm light slapped Lin Jun's shoulders, and the warm current instantly scattered, making his brain wake up a little. Lin Jun grinned, patted his shoulder, and hummed indifferently, "Okay, with you here, what am I afraid of? No matter how bad this broken place is, I will step on my feet." He lowered his head and took out the broken stone he had been slapped from his feet, rubbed the blurred symbols on it with his fingertips, and suddenly lit up in his brain, "This thing. Why is it so similar to the breath of this secret realm?" He sat down on his knees, closed his eyes and focused his mind. His spirit poked out like a wire, slowly entered the stone, and tried to draw the spiritual pattern around him. The spirit whirlwind suddenly violently, and a sensation rushed in. Lin Jun's eyebrows burst into pieces, and his consciousness was almost interrupted. Yun snorted coldly, the long sword swept, and the cold light tore and flowed like thunder, firmly squeezing the surrounding energy field. He said in a low voice, "Lin Jun, don't be distracted. I'll keep you going." His temperament was still so cold, but the posture of the long sword standing on the ground was even heavier, like a mountain that was unmoving. Suyao quickly leaned over, pressed his palm on the ground, and a circle of soft light barriers spread out, and said in a low voice, "I will help you calm down on the field and record the details. The three of you are working together, which is stronger than you alone." Her eyes were fixed, and her fingers quickly ticked the runes, recording the energy fluctuations around Lin Wu one by one. Lin Jun felt warm and smiled at the corner of his mouth. "Okay, with you, I am very immature." He took a deep breath, and his spirit urged with all his strength. The symbols on the broken stone slabs gradually retracted and the secret realm of the air gradually retracted. The resonance force made the light curtain of the divine gargantuan protector suddenly burst out, reducing the damage and rising. He sniffed his eyes and roared, "It's done. This stone piece is a fragment of the energy of the secret realm. My talent has a lot to do with this place. I can be stronger." He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth secretly. "This is just the first step. When I take out all the secrets, who dares to sway me?" The three of them continued to go deeper, and the inside of the secret realm became darker, and there was a sense of decay and pressure in the air. In front, a hidden projection method seemed to be hidden. Lin Jun stepped on his head, his eyes locked on the blurred light and shadow, and said in a deep voice, "There is something, go and take a look." He led the way forward, his fingertips poked out, and he touched the core of the method. The light and shadow instantly opened, and a piece of image appeared in front of him. In the image, several black-robed men surrounded by a huge celestial stone, and their low voice was cold and harsh. "That boy Zhao Lai has made a good start. The energy of this secret realm will create another group of puppet warriors. As long as you gain the essence of the genre, the entire spiritual world will have to crawl." The image was blurry, but Zhao Lai's figure was clearly visible. He stood behind the black-robed man, with a poisonous smile on his face. Lin Jun's eyes were red, his fists were clenched, and his anger slammed into his brain. "Zhao Lai, you dog thing, there is such a big chest hidden behind you. Want to use this secret realm to make trouble? I will tear your trunk today." The light curtain of the Shengang protector was flickering wildly, and the damage was reduced, which increased to 85% and nearly 90% of the time. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "When I stand in front of you, you will not deserve the opportunity to kneel down and beg for gifts." Yun's hand holding the sword tightened slightly, his eyes swept around, and his voice was low. "Lin Jun, cold. This is just an image, the real sword and the real gun have not come yet. I'll guard, you dig the wire." His figure was slightly moved, and the sword was circling, and the defense line was as stable as an iron wall under the potential flow of trouble. Suyen bit his lips tightly, and his palms slapped, and talisman lights poured into Lin Chio's body. His voice was a little quick, "We are all here, don't let these things worry about it. I will help you suppress the waves and come slowly." Her spirit was warm and steady, and the irritability in Lin Chio's brain made him realize that it was clear and clear. Lin Jun turned his head and looked at her, grinned and said, "Thank you, Suong. With you holding your waist, I won't die." He took a deep breath, continued to stare at the image, and entered his brain in an instant, secretly calculating, "Zhao Lai, this account will be settled with you. With strength, I must seize every opportunity to strengthen every point." At this moment, the projection method suddenly shook, the ground around it began to collapse, and several spiritual guards emerged from the cracks, shaped like shadows, with a stern killing. Lin Jun suddenly stood up and shouted, "Good ear. I'm worried that there is no place to vent my fire." Breaking the air fist. The fist was like thunder, and the golden light burst into pieces, directly smashing a guard, but more enemy bees came in the test picture to tear the three of them apart. Yunchan Jian slammed, and the cold light stormed. Every shot hit the vital point. He shouted coldly, "Lin Jun, don't be a rash person. I'm clearing the ground, you're looking for a broken sword." His body was like electricity, and the sword's moves were extremely fierce. Shuang Hanjiu Ju slashed out in a row, and he broke out a bloody path for Lin Jun. Su Yan pressed his palm on the ground, and the soft light barrier instantly expanded, protecting the three of them tightly, shouting, "I'll guard the back, you can't beat him. With me here, no one can break this line of defense." Her face was pale, but her eyes were as firm as iron, and the barrier was as stable as a mountain. Lin Jun bit his teeth tightly, and the light curtain of the Shengang protector resonated with the surrounding energy. Every time he was hit, the injury would rise by 1 point, and in the blink of an eye, it was nearly 90%. He felt the turbulence of the power inside his body, and a fierce light ignited in his eyes, and he shouted, "It's great! Come again!" Tiangong's recoil. The golden light spread like a dragon, and the power of the backlash shook the surrounding guards into pieces. He gasped and muttered in a low voice, "This kind of improvement is just an appetizer. What I want is not just to carry it, but to crush everything." The battle became more and more intense, and the three of them cooperated like a storm. The clouds are like rainbows, clearing their side wings. The Su skull barrier is not broken, defending the back. The Lin skull becomes more and more crazy the more they fight, and the golden light interacts with the fist, turning the guard into a slag. Finally, the last guard wailed and turned into black smoke. The three of them stood in front of the collapsed ruins, covered in sweat and dust. Lin Jun wiped his face and grinned, happy. "Zhao Lai, this is just a warm body. When I uncover all the secrets of this secret realm, what are you going to fight me?" He lowered his head and glanced at the ground, picked up an inconspicuous gray crystal with his hand. He felt a faint movement at his fingertips, so he didn't think much about it, and directly put it in his waist bag and put it with the broken stone slab, just a useless stone. A stronger desire arose in his heart, and he clenched his fists secretly. "No matter what is ahead, I have to step on it. To be stronger is my only way." The night was deep, and the three of them walked out of the ruins of the secret realm and returned to the town on the border along the winding mountain road. Lin Jun walked in front, his thin body swaying in the night wind, and was steadily, with the blood and soil of fighting left on his body. As soon as he stepped onto a grassy field on the hillside, he stopped suddenly and turned to Yun and Su Xiao and said in a low voice, "You should rest first, I have to calm myself down." Yun held the long sword in his hand, glanced around with a sharp look, and threw a sentence in a hard manner, "Don't rub it for too long, this broken place will be uneasy." As he fell, his figure flashed and he rushed to the rocks that were far away. The sword pointed to the ground lightly, and a feeling of pressure was scattered around him, as if he was silently declaring guarding. His fingers tightened slightly on the handle, as if he had stopped half a minute more than usual. Su Xiao lightly lit his head, his fingers were flowing with spirit, and he said in a low voice, "Lin Jun, don't force yourself too much. We are here, waiting for you to come back." Her voice was gentle, carrying a piece of inconspicuous concern, and then retreated to Yun's side, pressing his palms gently on the ground, and a faint light curtain quietly spread out, keeping the surroundings. Lin Wu sat down on his knees, closed his eyes, and the night wind blew across the grass, bringing a clear and refreshing atmosphere. He flashed through every tough battle in the secret realm, and the light from the divine weapon protecting his body flashed and darkened in his memory. Every time he was hit, he felt more injured. The pleasure of the exhaustion of power made him feel tight. He bit his teeth tightly, his fists clenched unconsciously, and a heat surged in his heart. This day, not just let me bear the beating, it is telling me that as long as I keep holding the beating, I can turn over. Yun and Su Wang, they tried their best to accompany me to this point. I can no longer be a waste to drag my back legs. He took a deep breath, opened his eyes, looked far away at the small town lights at the foot of the mountain, and a blazing flame ignited in his heart. Zhao Lai, please wait for me. One day, I will trample your butt into scum. Standing up, Lin Jun strode towards the two people and growled, let's go back to the town. There are also piles of scoops waiting for me to clean up. The three of them walked down the mountain road, and the night became increasingly heavy, and the lights in the town seemed to be hidden far away. When we entered the village building, the surroundings were filled with residents, and we were filled with shock and fatigue on our faces. The energy fluctuations in the secret realm hit the town, and the defense barriers mostly collapsed, and several houses turned into ruins, and there was anxiety in the air. Lin Jun glanced at the crowd, his heart sank, and he strode forward, his voice burst out like thunder, I'll hear it all. I'm back, this mess is not over, but with me, who don't want to touch a hair in this town again. Several old men in the crowd were stunned, and a flash of light flashed in their eyes. A Dahan man full of facial frost asked, Boy Lin, can you really protect us? Lin Jun grinned and patted his chest hard, wait. I've smashed all the iron lumps in the secret realm. Are you still afraid of this little trouble? Everyone moves, repairs the barriers, guards the garden, I'm on the front. His words were like a heavy note, hitting the chest of the crowd, and the crowd gradually moved. Some carried stones and some carried wood, and the living was slowly recovered on the square. Yun stood aside, the long sword penetrated the ground, and coldly threw out a sentence, it's useless to shout, Lin Wu. The way of the barrier core is stable. I'll do it, you'll bring people to block the outside. His temperament was still as hard as a stone, but after saying this, he knocked his fingers on the handle of the sword, then squatted down, carved a complex pattern on the ground, and his body was as stable as Mount Tai, shaking an invisible wall for the town. Su Yao walked to the injured person, his palms covered, and a long and warm light penetrated into the wound, relieved the pain. She turned to Lin Jun, her voice softly, you have really changed a lot, from the boy who was laughed at, to now becoming everyone's backer. I watched you walk step by step, and then I realized, a person's shoulders cannot bear all the weight. Her words contained an inexplicable emotion, and her eyes were slightly flashing. Lin Jun heard it and grinned, Su Wang, thank you very much. Only with you can I dare to be so hard. Come, help me lift this stone and block the gap at the east first. He leaned over and grabbed a huge rock, and the veins swelled up, carrying it to his shoulders, and strode towards the barrier gap. When he put down the stone, his fingers accidentally wiped a piece of stone carving with runes on the ground, and a faint energy penetrated into his palm, making his heart thump. He glanced down with his eyebrows, and it was just an ordinary broken thing. He slapped the dust off with his hands and muttered in his heart, this breath. Why is it a bit like something I saw when I was a child? Forget it, do the serious business first, and there is no time to deal with these messy things. The repair work continued until late at night, and the barrier finally took shape, and a lot of haze on residents' faces dissipated. Lin Jun wiped his sweat, stood in the middle of the building, and shouted loudly, stop tonight. Keep working tomorrow. With me here, you can pass by any road ahead. His voice was powerful, attracting a grateful look. As the night became deeper, Lin Wu walked to a clearing area beside the town, looking up at the galaxy in the sky, thinking in his heart was like a tide. He sat down on his knees, his fingers unconsciously rubbed a broken stone piece on his waist, and his heart was filled with an indescribable emotion. From the past, I couldn't even eat, and I was stepped on my feet and looked at it as a dog. Now, I can smash the guard with one punch, and protect this land. But it's still far away. Shaoli, the bigger your situation, the more I want to tear it apart. The wave of the mainland, I'm going to stand up to see how high the scenery is. His eyes were calm, and the light of the divine weapon protecting body flowed quietly in his body, as if he was sharing the will of his burning. Far away, Yun and Su Rong's figures were hidden in the lights, never approaching, but just silently watching. Lin Jun's lips slightly swelled up, and a warm feeling surged in his heart. With them here, my road will not be alone. Under this starry sky, no matter what ghost thing is ahead, I will kick it open. The next morning, Lin Wu woke up from the broken straw hut on the edge of the town. The first morning light passed through the gap and fell on his face. His thin body looked particularly lurking in the light and shadow. The thoughts at night were like a fire, burning in the chest became stronger and stronger. He stood up, patted the dust on his body, and strode towards the square along the familiar mountain road. The cold wind shaved over his face, but his heart was so hot that it was about to explode. He looked down at his palms filled with scars, and his mouth slightly slapped, as if a sharp knife was hidden. The god's body. This is not a tool for being beaten, it is my life. Today, I want to let everyone in this broken place see, I, Lin Jun, have long been the waste that can be trampled on. When I stepped into the town, the morning light had dyed the ground into a golden yellow. The residents gathered together, with the fatigue of last night on their faces, but there was a lot of hope in their eyes. Lin Jun jumped onto a high stone, his eyes swept over everyone like a knife, his voice was low and he carried unquestionable power. I heard it clearly. In the past, I was the most unreliable person in this town, and I was kicked like a dog. But now, I have been holding those iron bumps in the secret realm, the attack of the storm, punching them one by one. This body's divine energy protection is my trump card and my will. No matter how much you spend on things in the future, I can kick them out. Don't give me a bag, this piece of land belongs to us. If you dare to come and snatch him, let him kneel down and crawl back. His words were like a memory of thunder, blowing open in the crowd, some clenched their fists and some roared. An old man with a frost on his face asked tremblingly, Boy Lin, can you really protect us? Lin Jun grinned and patted his chest hard, stop talking. I can do it if I can say it. No matter how big the wind is in the future, I will be on the front. Just follow it. I will keep this broken place even if I die. His voice was like a drum beat, igniting the air on the square. The residents started to rush and shouted at each other, and there was a hint of blood on their tired faces. Yun stood outside the crowd, pressing his hand on the long sword, watching everything coldly, and his eyes slightly moved, as if he had something to say, but in the end he just hummed lightly and turned to look at the faraway sky. Suing stood on Lin Jun's side, smiled lightly, and said in a low voice, You have become so impressive that you look at me. Now you are like blocking the wall, making people feel at ease. Her words were gentle, and she brought a sense of comfort that was difficult to detect. Lin Jun felt excited and turned to her and said, Thank you, Suong. I've been lying down long ago without you squeezing your waist. He shouted at Yun again, Hey, cold-faced guy, why are you so stupid? Come and go together. Yun hummed, walked slowly, and threw out a sentence, Don't be too proud, the way ahead is not so simple. The three left the building and walked along the forest path along the town. The sunlight passed through the leaves, scattering spots on the ground, and the sound of the steps and occasional birds remained. Lin Jun suddenly stopped walking and turned to look at the two people, with a little heavy feeling in his eyes. He took a deep breath and said in a low voice, In the secret realm, if you hadn't protected me with your life, I would have become a pile of mud. Yun, your sword is always ahead of me, so that I know what reliance is. Suong, your gentleness makes me understand that some things are harder than fists. What you give me is not fate, but a fire in my heart. Yun's eyebrows were slightly snaked, as if he was not tempted by this kind of scene. His fingers tapped on the handle of the sword, and his temperament was still hard. Stop talking about these words, I just don't want to see you as stupid as bad things. Remember, no matter how difficult the road ahead is, don't let me lose my chain. His words were thorns, but his eyes were half softer than usual. The movement of the palm of his hand stopped for a moment, as if covering up a certain emotion. Suing smiled lightly, with a warm light flashing in her eyes, and said in a low voice, We will remember your path. No matter where you are, don't forget to look back, we are still there. Her voice was like spring wind, which made Lin Jun's heart warm. He pointed his head hard, clenched his fists tightly, and a heat surged in his chest. Okay. No matter how far you are in the future, I will never forget this period. With you here, I won't be afraid of anything. The sunlight grew higher, and the three of them walked to the trail as far as the road was. In front of them was a wide dirt road leading to the depths of the mainland. Lin Jun stopped walking and looked back at the town behind him. The crowd on the ground was already busy. Some people were yelling at him, while others shouted, "Be careful all the way." He took a deep breath, and the thoughts in his heart swept over like night wind. This broken place is the root of my growth and the starting point for me to get up. From now on, I will walk out here and see how hard the topmost part of the mainland is. Brave, no matter how poisonous your harshness is, I will slap it with a slap. No matter how difficult it is to walk on the road ahead, I will grit my teeth and flatten it. He turned to look at Yun and Su Rong, and a corner of his mouth sneered, "Don't sneak a blind eye, don't be thrown too far when I stand at the top." Yun snorted coldly, pressed the long sword with his hand, and said lightly, "Don't worry, I won't let you lose your risk." Su Rong lightly, his smile warmly, "Waiting for your news, Lin Jun." Lin Jun laughed and strided onto the dirt road, his figure wandering far in the morning light. His back was thin and upright, and every step seemed to be stepping on the throat of his life. The silhouette of the town became blurry behind him, and the sound was low around him, like a low-key future trial. The sunrise around the sky dyed the cloud layer into a golden red, and a lonely bird swept across the sky, making a sound of long birds, as if sending a farewell, as if indicating an unknown storm.